Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing okay. Let's see, I have a few videos that I need to do tonight. So I'm going to get those in. These are going to be a little shorter than my normal. I'm trying to keep a time limit. Good, mic is fine. First, I want to thank everybody that helps the show, whether you contribute, whether you send videos, whether you send tips, tweets, all of those things in between, whether you super chat, whether you patron, whether you PayPal, whether all of those things in between assist the show. And I want to thank you very much for all of the help. I can't have this show without you. At this point, I'm doing this more and more. It takes up more of my life. And so I'm just saying it's appreciated. Thank you very much. That's the first part. The second part I want to get into may step on some toes because I know there's some people here who are in the tank for Donald Trump. But step away from the tank for the moment. Your president ran a race to the left in an odd way of what had been considered to some degree Democratic, we could say, dogma. Now, or let's say Republicans ran to the left of what was considered to be the Republican Party. One of those things was an increase in wages. This idea of healthcare. Everybody's going to have big, beautiful healthcare. I'm going to build a wall. All of these things. I'm going to get rid of NAFTA. I'm going to get rid of the TPP. He did get rid of the TPP. He has talked about some of the issues associated with NAFTA. But let's get to the root of the hallmark that I want to get at. This Make America Great Again. My contention has been that Make America Great Again, for all intents and purposes, is hope and change for the Republican Party. That's what I think. I think that in the same way that lefties, progressives, had looked at Obama and they say, oh my God, this guy's talking about hope and change, and look how euphoric, and God damn it, he's black. I'm all in. I'm all in. Hope and change. I want hope and change. Missing the fact that these words are so expansive and euphoric that they kind of blur with regards to meaning. And you find out that he's a political actor who, for the most part, was selling an advertisement in the same way that people will sell Coke or some people will sell Pepsi. Donald Trump comes out. He's not black, but he's some degree different in the way that he talks. His tone is abrupt. He's angry. He's willing to go after people in this kind of overt, maybe childish schoolyard way. People like it. They're thrilled by it. To them, it's change. I make the point that it's more tonal. That's not necessarily a significant thing of change. One of the key points, though, with this whole idea of Make America Great, what does that mean? Now, when you get into the bare bones of it, let's look at some of the policy that Donald Trump has implemented. One of those trying to be to destroy healthcare. Understanding that any destruction of healthcare will increase the costs associated with you, your wallet, when you need to pay for healthcare. Getting rid of healthcare at point of service, meaning having to pay for it at point of service, should be the point and should be the goal if you want to keep more money in your pocket. Donald Trump is trying to destroy it altogether. He failed in that. He tried to put up Trump care. He failed. Move on to something that was a little bit more insidious. The tax cut. That grotesque, over-the-top, nasty, repugnant tax cut that Donald Trump sold on this idea that it was going to somehow help mom and pops and workers, and that money was going to go in their pockets, and the world was going to be great in lollipops and unicorns. Look at this. Workers' wages dropped while companies spend billions to boost stocks. Wages have gone down. Now, here's the catch. Without me even reading this article, I've read it, but I'm saying without reading it, of course, it is intuitive that such a thing was going to happen. I put a ton of money in your pocket. And from a standpoint to which we are in our society, if you've made a ton of money, we accept that you've made a ton of money. We don't necessarily care how you got it. However you got a ton of money. You've earned it in some capacity. What do you do with that money? Why would you invest that money in workers? No, they invest it in their stock. They boost their stock. Many of them get their money in stock. So when they artificially inflate the value of their stock, they essentially, to some degree, inflate the amount that they're worth. There is no impetus to put that into other human beings. Assume for the moment you have a company And in assuming for the moment that you have that company, you are trying to maximize your profit. In trying to maximize your profit, are you going to buy a worker if you don't need a worker? The answer is no. If the point of it is to maximize your profit, which is the point, workers are expensive. You only buy a worker if that worker can somehow materially get you additional revenue. If they don't believe they can get revenue, they're not going to invest in anything. They have no reason to invest in it. They're going to inflate their own dollars, which is what they exactly did. This is a capitalistic system. Understand the system to which you find yourself. Us, human beings, mom, pops, dads, uncles, people who just work in ordinary jobs. The half of the country that is even poor or in poverty. Meaning whether they're in poverty or whether they are on this kind of thing of barely making their ends meet. That's half of the country at this point. And in dealing with half, I think it was like a third of the country, it was like a third world conditions. This is the richest country on the planet. There was enough wealth generated over the last year to get rid of poverty 7 times over. Why would you believe that the benevolent plutocrat will somehow put money into the pockets of workers? We need to get rid of this idea that, and let me say it a different way. Politicians have a way of going about their affairs where they threaten you constantly. They do it in subconscious ways to some degree, but they threaten you continuously. When Donald Trump and even the Democrat are talking about jobs and workers and everything else, to some degree underlying that is a threat. That if we don't do things that benefit the plutocrats of our society, the people with the most in our society, we need to attend to the needs with the most. Because if we attend to the needs of the people with the most, it will trickle down to the rest of us like urine. And we can put it over our bodies and somehow be renewed by the urine of the plutocrat. That point of view is odd to take for the 99%. Meaning if you're the 1% and you're trying to create an excuse for people to give you more money, there you go. That should not be the disposition that is taken by the 99%. Understand the situation to which you find yourself. You are, for the most part, in a society. If the lights are to stay on, if the streets are to remain swept, if the streets are to remain streets in the first place, if the air is to remain clean, all of these things require workers, human beings, the human capital that's in the society itself. All of this stuff, your society comes to a halt without the human capital that are in the society itself. There is no situation in which a society should allow somebody to work 8 hours of their time, of their labor, and not be able to make ends meet, not be able to put food on the table or to live their lives. It is a travesty. It is another travesty that we have poverty in the society to the degree that we have poverty in the society. Again, richest country on the planet. We spend nearly $1 trillion on weapons. And the moment that you bring up, hey, what about making sure people can go to school? Or what about making sure people can have health care? At that point, it's always, oh, that's too expensive. That's too expensive. Yes, we can build bombs and jets and planes and bullets in order to go and kill and murder and maim and to rip people apart and create more enemies and create more havoc and create more business opportunities for the companies that are building those bombs and jets and planes and missiles. But the moment that you get into this thing of, hey, what about making sure the people of your society are educated? What about making sure that one less expense that needs to come out of their already strained pay is healthcare at the point of service? Are you telling me that we are incapable of doing these things? Are you telling me we're incapable of making sure that there is a job guarantee if a person wants to work, or that people are not in dire straits? I'm saying that there has been an utter failure on the Democratic Party side of trying to deal with these things of poverty. And it is not insane for people to say Donald Trump looks different. Maybe he's going to do something different. I am making the point, however, to the people who made that shift to realize you're being had. You're being had to the same degree that the Democratic Party, Obama, and the lefties were being had in that moment. I'm trying to make this point to you that there is a way of looking at the world that has been enshrined from the perspective of the plutocrat. And I'm saying that that needs to change. I'm saying that the perspective to take of the world is to look at whether you're black, white, straight, gay, somewhere in between, something unnamed, that if you're in the 99%, that you function as if you're in one large collective and you make decisions based on what is in your specific, meaning specific from the standpoint of the 99%, what's in your best interest. I hate to tell you this, but voting for somebody based on this idea of their race, you could say that about the Democratic Party, but the same thing is true for the Republican Party. You are also being had in the same way that you can say that those blacks and gays and Hispanics who are voting for Democrats are being had. You too, sir, are being had. What I propose to you is that you start looking at the world through the lens of, it takes us to make this society run. As a collective, it takes us. You can hate my guts. I don't care. It's still, at the very least, have some level of consciousness to realize that it takes us as a collective of the 99% to make this society work. And that of the bunch that is unnecessary in this equation is the 1%. Your society can be arranged to some degree in any way you want, providing you're willing to live with the consequences. These are the consequences of the arrangement to which you find yourself. What I'm asking you is, if you want to make America great again, if you want to change the way the world is organized or the way that America is organized, I agree with you. The question becomes, what does that look like and how do you do it? And I'm trying to get across that the person, your standard bearer, is not doing that. He's not doing that. He's not functioning in your interest. He's functioning in the interest of the 1% and of this class. And no, I don't necessarily think that the Democratic Party is working in your best interest either. So I don't think either of these parties are. But I'm trying to get to the point of trying to untether this line of thinking from the standpoint of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that you must attend to the plutocrat assiduously. Otherwise, lest harm befall all of you. That's nonsense. I think we need to attend to our own needs. And I think we need to start looking at ourselves as a pack and as a group and as a 99%. And the decisions that are being made need to be made from the standpoint of what is in the best interest of the 99%, not the other way around. Your wages are not raising. Your wages are not rising. You've been sold a bill of goods. He gave these companies a ton of money. They put that money in their pocket. They said, thank you very much. And they kept ticking along. The tax cut had nothing to do with you. Your taxes will be raised in a few years when the sunshine clause ticks off. Well, he made it permanent for the plutocrats. They're putting their money in their pockets. They say, thank you. For you, not so much. This is hope and change. So for his audience, for the Republican Party, wake up. Wake up. So I'm going to end this one here. I'm not going to keep this one long. I have another one after this. So I will see you guys shortly. My stream has been getting weird with this thunderstorm, so I don't necessarily want to keep it too long before it ends. The plutocracy as a system stacked no matter who's in charge. Well, this is kind of my point. The problem is not one or the other. The problem is both. Seeing it through the lens of the one or the other is somewhat problematic. But I'm trying to get at something a little bit more fundamental. The perspective that people take on this is from the 1%. It's always from the perspective of the 1%. Like I'm trying to think of an example that gets it across. Like sometimes the arguments that conservatives make with regards to like Medicare or healthcare, even unions, or this weird way of wanting other people to be in pain because they themselves are in pain. So it's like they would say, well, that guy shouldn't make that much. Why not? Why not? You have Jeff Bezos with $140 billion, and you're complaining that somebody in the union is making too much money. Why not? Why is the issue that that person is not making all of that? Why not you should be making more? Why not that guy who has $140 billion shouldn't have $140 billion? Like, it's just an odd way that people argue when you're talking about these issues, and they argue it from the perspective of the plutocrat or from the perspective of the crab that is trying to pull people down to a particular level. I'm saying that's a nonsense argument. You, as a person, why wouldn't you want your kid to be able to go to school? Why wouldn't you want to be able to get health care at the point of service without having to put all of this money out of your pocket? Why do you want to pay more for health care than all of these other nations? Why do you want to put all of that money into the pocket of a top 1% when you do these things? Why do you want to work this much? Why? I ask these questions because these questions make no sense to me. You have a society, that society has a certain amount of resources of that society. Oftentimes, those resources are just given away to corporate interests because that corporate interest is putting money into the pocket of politicians. That should stop. That should stop. So I'm making the point that in one case after the next, you have this situation where there are corporate giveaways, where the government gives corporations all of this money. But the moment you make this point of saying, look, this is our society, this is our government, we make choices on what we want to do with the resources of this particular society, and yes, we will have adequate taxation to the degree where we need to pay for healthcare and education. That should be a red line. That should not be something that's even in debate or question. Why wouldn't you, as a society, meaning each and every person, want to have access to the healthcare? And why wouldn't your society conform around a way to make sure that's a reality? This just seems odd to me that people will want to pay more for healthcare, that they will want to pay $1 trillion for the military, and yet don't want to tend to their own affairs. I'm saying, as a society, we need to start attending to our own affairs. We need to start looking at these issues through that lens of how do we need to have a decent society? If you can't attend to just the basic needs for your society, what's the point? What's the point? Are you telling me that you could spend $1 trillion, nearly $1 trillion on murdering people abroad, but you can't attend to your own affairs at home from the standpoint of education and healthcare? That just seems a fucking amazing disposition. And I'm not trying to get all Trump supporters, but there is a 20% that I asked, is this making America great again? And do you honestly believe that Money Watch, CBS, is lying about this? This is their wheelhouse. And I'm saying it's their wheelhouse because to them, they like this idea to some degree. They freak out when workers' wages go up. It means less profits. They're not lying. It's logic. It's very logical. You give me a bunch of money, I put the money in my pocket. Thank you. I put the money in a worker when I need to when I think I can get revenue from that worker. I don't do it for shits and giggles. This has nothing to do with ethics, integrity. This has nothing to do with good nature or anything else. This is a business decision. It's like dead peasants insurance from Walmart. It sounds horrendous, but it's a capitalistic decision. Understand the system to which you find yourself. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying how we look at the world. We process the world in this way. God, this is going too long. Look, as a person is born into a society. Is born into a particular culture, an idea of the world, right, wrong, morality, all of those things are essentially embedded into the person through one experience after the next versus cause and effect. Essentially, that person is built based upon where that person is in time and space. It's not that person is just being a thing unto themselves. That person is always enmeshed in a society that has certain things that that person either accepts or pushes back against. I say that to say, if you're growing up in a society where the disposition is from the perspective of the 1%, then makes all the sense in the world that would be the perspective that someone takes. At that point, the perspective is not their own, even though they take the perspective as their own. Fair enough. I imagine at one time, probably back in the 60s, it would be assumed that African Americans were inferior, that their capacity for logic and thinking and for reading and writing and all of these things were somewhat understood to be lesser than. They were lesser than as human beings. They were barely human beings. It is understood their status in society as being second class. It is understood. It is understood like breathing. They're supposed to be that way. That's the way the world is. That's not something that we're imposing on it. That's just the way the world is. They're just that way. It wasn't just that way. It was that way because they had a society that essentially embedded certain ideas that allowed the society to persist in the way the society was going. I'm saying this is similar in the fashion of the way this goes and the way this is. There's certain ideas that are embedded in the people. I'm saying those ideas need to be rebelled against, and the perspective needs to be understood from that standpoint, that there are certain things that were put into you as you grew up, as you got older. This kind of implicit effect of a capitalistic system that looks at itself as being the only thing there is. The political class, the media class, all of these people, for the most part, told this particular narrative, told this particular line, and it makes it look as if this is all there is and this is the only way the world works. I'm saying, analyze it for the moment. Look at what they're saying. Look at the perspective that these guys take. Is the perspective in line with the 99%? Do you honestly believe that the most important component in this particular process of our world is the 1%? Why do you believe the plutocracy is the thing that's most important? 1% of the population is the most important aspect of the population. That's nonsense. How do they get to use our resources in this way? Why do they? We complain about the Soviet Union because we say, hey, communism, there's only one party in that. That's how horrible that is. And then you end up with two parties and you say this is the hallmark of democracy. This is nonsense. These parties collude with corporate interests. The collusion between the parties and the corporate interests, for the most part, allow them to take certain dispositions. Even the media, for the standpoint, is a talking point for the particular disposition. So it's not shocking to me that people look at this from the perspective of the 1%. I'm saying, take yourself back from this and look at what takes place. And you're talking about all of the resources being hoarded by a very small portion of the society. And I'm asking you, why do you believe that that's okay? Why do you believe that's okay? I'm telling you it's not. Jeff Bezos with $140 billion is embarrassing. Somebody else is sleeping on the street. That is a failure of the way you allocate your resources. I'm saying the way we organize ourselves needs to change. There is no reason in hell that Jeff Bezos should have $140 billion. He should be ashamed that he has $140 billion. We all, to some degree, should be ashamed that Bezos has $140 billion and there's even one person living on the street. We need to change in the way we look at these things. And it can change. It is not an impossible thing. Balthazar, when your lawsuit, what is this, Balthazar? Hashtag, when your lawsuit with your lead values WikiLeaks from Russia. Make me read these things. These things are so hard to read. When you lawsuit with your lead values WikiLeaks Russia. You know the sad part about that, Balthazar? It's one thing if they hit Trump on real issues like this. You said you were going to make America great again and wages are falling. You gave trillions of dollars to the plutocratic class and wages are falling. That doesn't look like you're making America great again. That seems to be as natural can be. We're talking about goddamn Russia. We're talking still about Russia. So I'm going to end this. Trump is the closest thing we have to a third party. Yes, he has to compromise with politicians by holding the donors. Our collective fault is for voting them in. TLOME. You're being far too kind to Donald Trump. I'm sorry. You're being far, far too kind to Donald Trump on this. Capitalist profit is fine. Predatory capitalism is cancer. Trina be fine. It's all predatory. I'm sorry. It's all predatory. Say you do a channel. You do a YouTube channel. In doing your YouTube channel, you say, I am going to be upright and I'm going to be honest and straightforward in the way I go about my affairs. Great. Now you're a capitalist. Because doing your YouTube channel, you're now a business owner. All right. Now you need to make profit, right? I mean, after all, you're a business owner. You need to do your channel. How are you going to do your channel? How are you going to make profit? Maybe not even the best of stories from the standpoint of what you consider to be the most important. But from a capitalistic standpoint, you're stuck doing them. You may be able to get your stuff in on like margins, but again, you're stuck doing something you don't necessarily want to do. That's just from YouTube. I've raised that to the level of media when you get to this idea of what you're trying to get people to watch. Or companies. I'll give you another example. You're in a company. That company finds out that the product that they're putting out causes some level of cancer. Now, I'm finding out that the product causes a certain level of cancer. If you take the product off the market, you've estimated that you're going to lose several, let's say tens of millions of dollars. And in losing tens of millions of dollars, you don't necessarily want to do that because the mainstay of the thing is profit. You estimate through cost-benefit analysis that it is better for you to put the product out and allow those people to get cancer and pay off the lawsuit afterwards. So that's what you do. Now, you can say those people were horrible. They're not being predatory. They're just being capitalists. I'm making a point to you that it's all predatory to some degree. It's all predicated on trying to maximize your profit, which means to some degree, nobody can be trusted. I go to buy a car. Can I trust that the guy is telling me the honest truth about the car? He may be telling me the truth. He may be lying to me because he just wants me to get the car. When you're selling me this hamburger, are you selling me this hamburger with the amount of hamburger that's in it? Because you know that if I give you a huge amount of hamburger, even if I don't need that hamburger, that I may be more inclined to eat at your place as opposed to one of the other places. Like, think about a fast food industry for the moment. It's cheaper to put animals in kennels, and it's cheaper to keep those animals in kennels in horrendous conditions. If I can pack more chickens into a container, then I can get more money from those. More chickens may die, more chickens may be distressed, but we've estimated through cost-benefit analysis that we can still get more chickens if we put more of them in a container. Same thing with pigs. Same things with anything else. We don't care about the animal itself. We just care about they're now a profit center. McDonald's says thank you for that. And McDonald's goes further and say, look, we can go further with this. We can take this hamburger and we can mix it with this pink shit and we can make a somewhat of a hamburger-ish item, and we can sell it as a hamburger. We can make more money now because we can extend the hamburger meat that we're using. What's that pink shit? Who knows? Who cares? We're just trying to sell a hamburger. It just needs to taste good. It's capitalism. I'm making a point to you that when profit is the main motive, when it's the highest goal, when it's the highest motivation, how can you trust anybody that you're working with? It goes beyond just predatory capitalists. It's capitalist. It's capitalism in and of itself, to some degree, that is the problem in the situation. This idea of a profit motive. There are some cases, yes, where it's not necessarily the world is coming to an end at the way they go about their affairs. But let's be honest, that the way things are going from the standpoint of these accumulations of profit centers, these 1%, that have gotten to the point of being rivaling governments in regards to the influence that they have around the world. That's a problematic. How do you stop schoolboy capitalism from turning into predatory capitalism? I don't have an answer to that question. You don't have an answer to that question. I think the problem is capitalism. Well, the amount of capitalist apologists raiding the chat must mean you're on the right path, Jamal. I love that term, capitalist apologists. I love it. But the invisible hand will ensure all restaurants use 100% hamburger, right? The market will sort it out. Hell, fuck it. Get rid of the FDA. Get rid of all that stuff. Let the market handle it. Let the market handle it. That's nonsense. Let's go to wider issues. ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil finds out in the 80s that what it's doing is going to cause cataclysmic climate change. Finds it out. It knows it. ExxonMobil buries that report. Understand the scale and the gravity of what we're talking about. Energy markets. They're being told that what they're doing is destabilizing the world. The world is at stake. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. That's what ExxonMobil is told. And ExxonMobil, in a mania that's in an utter illusion, I guess assuming that they themselves can somehow ride out the carnage, or that they won't be around when the carnage hits, buries the report. Bury it. Treat it like cigarettes. Bury the report. The world is at stake. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. Bury the report. Maximizing their profit based on this kind of capitalistic system says, look, it costs us more if we come out with it now. So bury it. We'll pay this stuff off later. We'll deal with it later. Delay. Maximize our profit. Have I said there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet? That the world was at stake? That they were told us in the report? Buried the report. Money is not even real. And they're willing to make more of this unreal thing as long as the structure itself, this invisible structure itself that surrounds us, to keep it in place. Because as long as that structure is in place, they themselves get more. They create a false reality in which this money means something. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. That asteroid is a real thing. The money is not a real thing. They're being told that a real thing is impinging upon this false system to which they have. And their stance in this is, we need to maintain the illusion. That's capitalism. They're being good capitalists. They're being good capitalists. Soviet winter prison. There's no such thing as a true free market. The capitalists use the government to take away rights from the working class and suppress the people to reap all the profits from us. Yes, I'm saying that disposition needs to change. The proletariat needs to take a certain disposition of saying, we are the important factor in this society. We keep the lights on. We keep the trash gone. We keep the coffee moving. We keep the society running. Without us, there is no society. There needs to be an understanding of that. It needs to be understood from flesh to bone. It needs to be understood in a way where it is untouched and there's a hegemonic viewpoint that keeps that in place. People have healthcare. People have education. Those things, at that point, this kind of sacrosanct of life, that if our society has capacity to do those things, our society does those things. What does it mean for a person in a society when they already have their wallets stretched? And then you have the secondary thing of having your wallet stretched where you now have to deal with this extra feature of healthcare, or this extra feature of education. What does it mean? I'm saying it doesn't need to be that way. It can change. It can change. Tuneit 20. Jamal, would you decline 100 milliliters mil for stopping your show? Would you decline? Would I decline it? No, I wouldn't decline it. I probably would accept it. I would try to start something else, but I probably would accept it. This is why I make the point, it's systemic. It's not purely the individual. There's certain incentives that are built in that drive people's behavior. I'm trying to get to the point, though, of yes, even though there's certain incentives that drive people's behavior, what about us? I am not in a position where somebody's giving me $100 million. And I think the 99% for the most part are nowhere near that position. I'm saying that from the bottom half, the 99%, we should have a consciousness about ourselves when we're going about our affairs. That certain things should just not be allowed, or certain things should be maintained. Looks like you have a buyer, Jamal. Creative experiments. I know, right? Somebody's making an offer. You making an offer to it? You're making an offer? I would use it for something else. I would go into something else. If I had $100 million, oh God, that would be fucking amazing. I would start an organization and I would try to organize the world. No, seriously. I would give it a show, but I would become a force of nature. I would be horrible. My mom has always said she hated me. She would not like me to go in politics, and she would not like me to go into law. She said that from a very early age. I don't want to see you go into either one of those issues because I don't like the person who I think you will become if you do. Yeah. Catalyst. I'd take that $100 million, stop the show, and start a new media. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be force of fucking nature. I mean, because look, I don't think the political system is broken as people says it is. I think you have money that's held in the hands of a certain select. And at the end of the day, they don't necessarily want the way we organize ourselves to change. I do. I full-throatedly want it to change. And if I had $100 million, I would... What would I do? I think I try to create a substructure under our political structure. If that makes sense. Meaning, I think I try to take certain regions. So Ocasio-Cortez won her race. I think it was like, well, it wasn't a huge number of votes. I mean, it was like less than 50,000 votes between the two of them. I think, if I could be wrong on this, but it was not a huge number of votes. Getting elected into the House of Representatives doesn't require a huge number of votes. I would organize resistance in each and every one of those states going all throughout the South, and I would be balls out in the message just being made. There are going to be some people who don't accept it at all. But in the places where you create a stronghold, I would try to expand it from there. I am not in this mindset that the political system can't change. It's changed before, it can change again. If Jamal got $100 million, he'd turn into a rich prick. I know I would. Just about everyone would too. It's just human nature. No, it's not. No, it's not. I disagree with you on that. I don't think I would turn into a rich prick. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm still me. I think I'd still be me. I don't think I'd change. Don't get me wrong. I mean, of course you change. Your reality itself would change at that point. But I don't think I'd be a rich prick. And I think I would probably maintain some of the same things that are in me now as I take that with me. I look at it like Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff went to Harvard, Stanford, and Yale, something to that effect. Going through all of the economic courses and everything else. And the guy still came out a Marxist. I think your experiences etched themselves on you, onto who you are. And as they etched themselves onto who you are, I think you take those things with you. Whatever it is that made me, me, has always been this way. Even when I was apolitical, I still had this kind of humanistic thing. I just was unaware of it. Trina B. Fine, nobody thinks it would change. Money changes everything. Trina B. Fine, no. I accept that would change. Because you don't... Where you live is going to change. The people who you talk to is going to change. The people in a room with you is going to change. The way you travel is going to change. What you eat is going to... All this stuff changes. I agree with you. But I'm saying the core essence that make me, me, the humanistic streak, I don't think that goes anywhere. Hello, Jerk. Jamal would pay people to tell him that he has not been changed. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Here's money. Now tell me how much I hadn't changed. That's funny. Tune at 20. Other conditions, be quiet about your politics or change. Other condition, be quiet about your politics or change. Now, Jamal Jimmy Dore has advertised several times now that if they bribed them with $1 million, they would push corporate propaganda. I've never said that. Dore has said that. Dore has said that. I've never said that. I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. It's just sometimes you have certain experiences that etch themselves on you, that leave somewhat of an indelible stain that will be too much to betray. Look, my, can you see this? When I first started the show and I started doing the channel when I got here, I think when I hit 10,000, my wife got me this. And part of it is because the motto or the mantra of the show that I try to attend to, I don't necessarily know if I always hit it, but I try. It's my mark. Breathe integrity. Like when you're doing a story, especially the stories that are important, and you have these kind of humanistic aims. Attend to those humanistic aims. Those stories are usually not being told, and the perspective of those are not being told. From some degree, you're talking from your own experiences here. You know, having a mom that was barely making ends meet, and then having to deal with a kid who was ill and all this stuff. You're speaking from your own experiences. It's hard to betray those things. Getting $100 million, I don't necessarily think it rips that away from you. I don't buy it. Does your condition and everything else change? Yes. Does it mean that you have to essentially throw out everything that you are? Fuck no. Fuck no. And show me this video afterwards, later on, where, if you believe that happened. How did this discussion evolve into whether Jamal won the lottery discussion? I have no idea. I have no idea. He was being serious when talking about an absurd premise. What a fucking moron. What are you talking about? You talking about because I'm talking about this? I don't think it's insane. Bow like a leopard. No, man, I've had calls all day. The call's been draining. I had like a 3-hour thing where I was accepting calls. And it's like, Jesus Christ. I still see you haven't read your queue and you don't know the plan. Therefore, you cannot read the comms in between the butler. Look, the queue stuff is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's utter and complete nonsense. I am sorry you bought into that. You bought into a hoax. It's utter nonsense. You've been taken for a ride. You've been taken for a ride. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. Joshua Renshaw's a moron. Oh, because I took a premise? Look, I don't think it's an absurd premise. I've had people say, well, you're doing videos, and for the most part, you're making a living on the videos that you do, and it's not an absurd premise at all. People ask the question of, well, who's paying you? Where are you getting your money from? My best friend, the guy who was at our fake wedding, a second wedding, it's not, fake wedding is too strong, our second wedding, we had one in Iceland. I mentioned to him that I'm doing videos. He's a Hillary supporter, and he's like, how do you know that it's not Vladimir Putin giving you cash for your show? This is the lunacy that we've devolved into. So I don't think it's an unsure premise. Don't think it's an unsure premise at all. Let's see, David. Ever heard of Andrew Hillman, Alan Freeman? Alan Freeman, yes. Anwar Sheikh, no, not the last one. Ever heard of Marx's law of tendency of the fall in the rate, fall of profit, right? As a source of capitalist crisis? Yes. Yes. I will stick up for Jamal. Joshua Renshaw acts like a Hillary bot. Usually Joshua Renshaw is on my side on this stuff. I don't think this premise is off. If it was Putin, that would be funny as yeah, that would be funny. That would be all funny as hell. But I'm trying to make this point that that's where people are. You have cynical people on the left who look at this stuff and say, oh my God, this person is getting paid off. And you have other people who are Democrats who say, is that money coming from Vladimir Putin? And if you're going on something like Sputnik or RT, oh my God, you're being propaganda piece. You know, this type of nonsense. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Have you seen the new Bernie clip where he reacts to Helsinki? Total sellout. Oh, bowl like a leopard. Don't. Oh, God. Oh, God. I haven't seen it. I am. Oh, God. It's going to break me to watch it. It's going to break me to watch that clip. So, fair enough. What does Putin have on you, Jamal? I don't know if Putin have anything on me, man. I don't know. I don't know. Q purpose was to direct Trump supporters to neocons in the future. That's what I think. That's what I think. That's exactly what I think. You're not going to be happy. No, I don't think I am going to be happy. I don't think I am going to be happy. Look, I saw Trump's performance in Helsinki. I thought no president in his right mind is going to turn around. No, Jamal, I was talking to Clyde saying Dore claimed he would sell out for $1 million as being serious. Clearly him being sarcastic about an absurd premise. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying I was a moron because I was having a conversation about an absurd premise. My bad, my bad. I'm in a weird position here, man, and let me explain it. I often, and maybe I think too much about it, but I often think of what I am in the grand scheme of giving out information, because information to some degree has edge. Otherwise, what are you getting it out for? I have a humanistic point of view of events. And that humanistic point of view looks out at the world and it pulls in and says, hey, this is interesting. Let me show this because I want people to see it. And I want to give people a little bit more context of what's taking place. To some degree, you have a lens, but that lens is a choice. You're choosing of all these events. This is the event that I'm choosing, or that event that I'm choosing. By the same token, you're an observer. At the same token, you're a critic. You have a disposition on the event that you're giving. Now, there are times where there are people who you put your support behind. They're doing things you don't like. Now, what do you do with this? It's somewhat of a quagmire. Do you show the event? And if you show the event, sometimes you're giving the tree before the forest. So I show a particular event. I understand why the person is operating in the way the person is operating, and yet I don't like the way the person is operating. And the moment that I show the event, it looks bad for the person in that scenario. even though ultimately I support the person. You're stuck in this weird disposition of being somewhat annoyed by something that the person is doing, while at the same token, it's not the end all be all, because at that point it would be the end all be all for everything. It's just an odd place to be in. It's like you're the observer, while at the same token, the person who's, you have a disposition, while at the same token trying to be fair and earnest when you're giving your media, because to you, from my standpoint, I think that's the thing that's missing in media. I don't want just an American perspective. I just want a perspective. I want something that's more real. I think American perspective or the British perspective, those things causes wars. It becomes problematic. There is no innocent party. Right. The DNC and the RNC are plain and simple thieving liars for hire, both focusing on just one bag. I agreed. I agree. Given the bank's trillions in quantitative easing didn't inflate the economy very much, why not social programs? David Kirby, I couldn't agree with you more. Clyde Illusion. Jimmy Dore has advertised several times now that if bribed with $1 million, he would push corporate propaganda. Clyde, he did say that, but I think he said that. He was saying it for, he did say that. He did. Hold on. Tune at 20. There was a painful clip on CNN where they advocated American exceptionalism and cheerleaders for CIA spooks. Oh, God. There's a clip on CNN where they're browbeating Jill Stein, telling Jill Stein, yeah, the position that you're taking there is all right for Vladimir Putin, but what about an American perspective? And it's like, that's everything wrong with our media. That's everything wrong with our media. Not just our media, by the way, media around the world. The perspective of the country you're in, as opposed to a more honest perspective. And I understand when I say this that they're incentivized to push the envelope from the standpoint of the narrative, because they want the narrative to be a driving thing that gets people and put asses in seats. If I have this sane perspective, then the same perspective sometimes gets downplayed by the louder voices that are in the room that are saying insane things. So you don't hear, Donald Trump is being a peacenik with Vladimir Putin. You hear it's 9/11. It's 9/11. It's Neville Chamberlain. It's an attack on democracy itself. These large, expansive terms that are indicative of war. It's indicative of war. It's just dramatically dangerous what these guys are doing. No worries, JT. Thank you for taking my call earlier. Too bad I couldn't dismantle your fracking position. Maybe someday support independent media through Super Chat. Hashtag Bernie Guillotine 2020. No war for nations, no peace for classes. Fucking A, Joshua. I love that. No war for nations, no peace for classes. Hashtag Bernie or Guillotine 2020. Dismantling your fracking position. Now, dude, I enjoyed taking the call earlier. It's funny. My wife came in. It was like, she was like, you need to cut down the length of the calls because you can get more people in. But the thing is, when I first started taking calls, nobody would call in. So it would be like 2 people. There would be nobody. In which case it's like, all right, well, I can just have a conversation with whoever I'm talking to. I also get into my head this thing of, I need to win this argument. As opposed to have a discussion, which I don't like that trigger, or I don't like that thing that switches over. But I don't think that was that way with you. And I think talking to you and Danny, I agree with you guys tremendously. Like, I don't think there's that much of a daylight between all of our positions on Ocasio-Cortez. But I'm stuck with a particular dilemma. Meaning, there are people who have given up on politics. And there are people who are close to giving up on politics. And those people feel that they've been let down. The screams at the top of the lungs of hope and change. Screaming it in every mic. Hope and change, hope and change. And then added to boot, being African American, which is definitely a change. It's, at least for the presidency. But ultimately, what those people found out, that hope and change gave away to continuity. Continuity. This is, we're just going to keep things ticking along for the most part in similar fashion to the way things were, with incremental change around the edges. Now, there are things that Obama has done that I thought was good. I thought the Iran deal was good. And for all of the problems with Obamacare, it cracked the consciousness of the American public dealing with this idea of supplying health care to the people of the public. So there are some things that were good. But people didn't put him in office for incrementalism. They put him in office for actual change. They wanted to change the way things were. Those people are not insane for being skeptical of the political class. And in being skeptical of the political class, look for any signs that they're being deceived or any signs that what is being said is being wobbled, moved, tweaked, shifted, and ultimately what they're looking for is, are you going to sell me out again? That's what this boils down to. The root of this is, are you going to sell me out? They're looking for any and everything that will get across any idea of, are you going to sell me out? Now, I agree with you on this. They are primed to believe that they will be sold out in all sorts of ways. Oh my God, they're not giving her any media attention. How those bastards. Oh my God, she's getting a lot of media attention. She must have sold out. Oh my God, she said this particular thing or that particular thing. She must have sold out. I grant you, to some degree, they're primed for it. I'm just making the point that they're primed for it in the same way African Americans can sometimes be primed dealing with issues of race. Yeah, sometimes somebody looks at you a particular way. It's not because they're racist, it's because they look at you a particular way. Sometimes somebody says something to you, not because they're racist, but because they're saying something to you. Just because somebody wants hard borders doesn't necessarily mean they're racist. I mean, by the same token, the people who are on the other end of that, who are at the receiving end of that, and been on the receiving end of being maligned by society, are not wrong for being on somewhat of a hair trigger for something like that to take place. I'm comparing this to some degree to the people who are on the left, the politically abused spouse of the Democratic Party. Well, now the spouse has started to get their shit together and they're looking for some level of change. Yeah, they're on a hair trigger. And yeah, the things that she says is going to be picked apart to see whether or not she's being earnest to what they believe she is. Whether it's fair or not is besides the point. It's a cause and effect of previous political action, or you can say inaction. So I don't fully disagree with you and Danny on this. It's just I don't think those people are wrong either, who are critical and who are looking for more. That's all. That's all. Tune it. The left is drunk with Russia hysteria. The Democratic Party is drunk with Russia hysteria. The left is responding to the fuckery that is taking place within the Democratic Party. That's the way I analyze it. The left doesn't care about this. In fact, the left doesn't like this. The left doesn't like this because the left realizes that the Democratic Party is using this in order to attack the left. So they would say, Hillary Clinton didn't lose on her own merits. She didn't lose because she was a horrible candidate. She didn't lose because she was the most hated candidate in the history of candidates, with the exception of Donald Trump once Donald Trump took office. She didn't lose because she cheated Bernie Sanders. No, that's not why she lost. It wasn't the emails. It wasn't her being under an FBI investigation while she was running in a political race. No, none of that had anything to do with it. It wasn't that the Clinton Foundation was a slush fund. It wasn't that she had been hated for God knows how long. And while I agree that the Republican Party has done somewhat of a hit job going for a long time ago, there's also a certain amount of hubris associated with her character in the way that she ran that race, as if all of us, you sniveling bitches, should be happy that I am in this race. Bend your knee and bow your heads and thank me, Hillary Clinton, for running in the race and saving you from that monster that's going to eat puppies and babies, Donald Trump. You're not doing me a goddamn favor running in the race. And the American public, for the most part, got across that she wasn't doing them a goddamn favor when she lost to reality shows. Now, I say that to say that they want to use whatever they can to assuage this thing, put a salve on losing to reality shows. And the idea of Russia has now become Russia somehow stopped Hillary Clinton, when what we're really talking about is a release of factually true information that, based on their argument, the public recoiled when they found the reality of what Hillary Clinton was. It's nonsense, but it's been conflated already to somehow have impacted the election and is the thing that got Donald Trump elected. It's nonsense. The FBI wouldn't even go that far. I mean, Mueller, even in the investigation, wouldn't even go as far as to say it had any impact on the election. And they already said that no American, as far as they know, was involved in it. Meaning, even if you take what they're saying, Donald Trump is not implicated. Not only is not Donald Trump not implicated in it, the impact didn't exist. This is nonsense. This is utter theater. This is utter theater. And yeah, Democrats have gotten all insane with this. I mean, the mainstream left, right? Even my parents fell for it. They suspect I voted for Trump. I lost a best friend over this shit. It blew me away. I don't mind having arguments in this medium. I'm okay with that. If I'm talking to a Hillary Clinton supporter, it's blood sport. Let's have some fun. Let's say bad things about each other and let's go at it. I don't want to be your friend at this point. I want you to lose. That's where I am from the standpoint of dealing with the Democratic Party. That's harsh, but it's true. It is what it is. You cheated my guy. You cheated my guy. That's where I am. That's where I am. Now, that said, that's not where he was. He was a Hillary supporter. And while he would admit that, no, this didn't have an impact on the race, he couldn't shut the fuck up about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And it still was like, dude, last chance. Talk about something else. Because look, I can say bad things about a Hillary supporter. I don't like Hillary supporters. And yes, I wish I was a better person than that. Is what it is. That may change at some point. At this point, it hasn't changed. I don't want to get into that with my best friend. That's a horrible scenario. Trudy, they cheated us. Yes, they cheated us, Trudy. Agreed. Paul, the Democratic Party is center-right, Republican is far-right. That's the cold truth of America. Need to broaden the global political scenery to realize just how right you are as a country. Yes, Paul, yes. I keep saying that the Democratic Party is essentially the Tory party in the UK. That's the way I see it. The rich is buying yachts cannot explain why they're neo-libs. Anthony Reyes. The real left has historical context of what we have done and how we aren't the ones to point the finger. JT, in my honest opinion, you're the voice for the left we need right now. Oh, thank you. I thank you. I think what we are, we don't know what we are. I think we're trying to coalesce around something. And I think we're starting to feel ourselves as being distinct from the Democratic Party. This is a good thing. The solidarity of no. The reason I said this is a good thing, because there are some people in the political space that don't believe anything can change. And for the political space to change, there needs to be somewhat of a shakeup in the way we go about our affairs. Meaning, if people really want hope and change, if they really want to make America great again, then the two-party system that you have is not going to do it. It's proven itself to be a failure. Sir Bikes a lot today. Feel you do that your friend think you voted for Trump. Oh no, he doesn't think I voted for Trump. He thinks I voted for, no, he knows I voted for Jill Stein. But his thing, the wild part is, he would agree with me on like 90% of what I would say. This is the wild part. And this is why I think shows like this and even HAs are important. I have had Trump supporters say the same thing. Full on Trump supporters say, dude, I agree with like 70% of what you say. Great. Let's join hands. Let's have a kumbaya in the sun. Let's take our fucking shirts off. Let's go running in the waters together. In a new world. In a new world. The world doesn't have to be this way. This is kind of the point that I'm trying to get at. We're not as divided as I think people believe that we are. The problem comes down to when people focus on these identity guidelines. You understand that there can be a white racist in Alabama that hates my guts, hates my fucking guts, doesn't want me to be alive on this planet, and yet we will probably have more in common than somebody else that he's voting for in the political process. White, black, gay, Hispanic, gay, under the economic means, for the most part, fundamentally, you are relatively the same. And that needs to be acknowledged. Bruce Carter, I think his name is Bruce Carter, Black Men for Bernie. He started going for Trump. And people started giving him shit about going for Trump. Saying, like, look at this black guy going for Trump. He's a sellout and everything else. But nobody has an issue with whites being sold out voting for the Republican Party. I mean, shit. Why is it bad for Bruce Carter to vote for the Republican Party, but it's okay for poor whites to vote for the Republican Party? Bruce Carter, if that's his name, has just as much in common as with those poor whites who are being screwed over by the Republican Party as anybody. Why is it a big deal that he's being screwed over by not those white Republicans? I guess I'm trying to make the point that the issue here is not race. Stop voting for people just because they look like you. That guy is Hispanic, that guy's Asian, that woman's gay, that woman, eats munch, so she's awesome for gay rights. Yes, she may be good on a specific issue because it only affects her specific issue of identity. But if you're talking about blacks and Hispanics, what you're really getting down to, if you're talking about even poor whites, you're talking about economics. You're talking about there is no such thing as any level of freedom for you, meaning the 99%, without some level of economic freedom, an economic dimension. How much you have in your pocket. What access do you have to food? What access do you have to clothing? What access do you have to housing? What access do you have to the things that you need in your life? What access do you have to education? What access do your kid have to education? What access do your kid have to healthcare? These are the things that make your life. It can make it miserable or it can make it less so. You choose. But it is a choice. It's not done by God. This is a choice. Tune at 20. Trump backpedaled that Russia didn't influence the election. I did hear that. I did hear that. Jamal, are you going to start your own party? I don't think I need to start my own party. I don't like parties. That's the first point. I do think people need to coalesce around a particular idea set. And yes, I guess that's a party, so fair enough. It's in the system. It's almost like you can't get away from it. Maybe I should say I don't like labels. I like people to be who they are. Hold your shape. Maybe that's why I took such an issue with Alexandria Cortez wobbling on that. I like people to hold their shape. When Jeremy Corbyn was being scrutinized for not necessarily going with this Russia stuff, with this Skripal poisoning, they cheered. Did you hear them in Parliament and Commons jeering at him? Oh! Groaning as he made his speech, saying that we need to wait for the evidence and we need to have investigation into what's taken place. Sane, logical, rational human being. And they jeered him. They booed him. People of his own party condemned him. Oh, boo. It was a horrible sight to behold. A sane and rational man being jeered. And then there's another poisoning. How do you know Russia did it? How do you know? They don't know. But they're saying Russia did it. My point in this is, he was under scrutiny for this. He was being scrutinized. People were booing him, literally booing him of his own party, screaming at him, "Oh, we don't like what you're saying." And yet he said it anyway. He didn't waver under pressure. He didn't wobble. He didn't shrivel under the light of day. He held his shape. This is kind of what I'm getting at. She's in a political edifice, and she's going to be forced to deal with this stuff over and over and over and over and over again. What did you think was going to happen when you got into politics? You thought they were going to play tiddlywinks? No! They're going to ask you questions. They're going to be people who disagree with you, and it's going to try to make you look bad. Have you seen some of the questioning that Galloway gets, or used to get, where the interviewer has a smirk on their face because they're hitting him with something that they think is going to put a knife in him, smiling in his face, while taking the knife and just kind of trying to ram it into him. Because to them, this is to some degree sport. It's their job. That woman asking you questions is not asking you questions just to give the public more information. She's asking you questions for reasons. Of course that question was going to come up. It was a big deal when you wrote that post. And it was a big deal because what you said in that post was true. Nobody is going to condemn you for holding that position. Or I'm wrong on that. Some people will condemn you for holding that position. But you are a democratic socialist. You have ran on the mantle of a socialist. You have cracked open this idea of what people would accept from the standpoint of socialists. Great. Own it. If you call it an occupation, own it. It looks worse not owning it. My issue here is not so much her answer. My issue is it is her answer. She wavered. She wobbled. It's going to be used against her. I would almost guarantee you that a campaign ad has been drawn up with her being asked that question, or her wobbling on that question, as opposed to being confident and giving an answer. I will tell you this, and I would, end this part on that. Strong and stupid is better than weak and right. It just is. For whatever reason, and the way we go about our affairs, it just is. You are better off staying with that answer and being strong with that answer and owning it, because you can own it. It's as if you didn't know what to say, which is the kind of way to make the point that the starlet of the Democratic Party that ran under the mantle of Democratic Socialists in this one ignoble moment looked like a 28-year-old who didn't know her lines. So yeah, it doesn't make me feel great to say it. It's just true. She should be better at her lines. Galloway is from my housing estate in Dundee. No way! I love Galloway. Love that guy. I would love to have him on the show. I hit him up on Facebook. He said, sure, brother, and that was the end of the communication. So I don't know if he looked at my show and was like, fuck that. I gotta be honest, that burns more than anything else. Like, look, if it was somebody you didn't like, if Hitler called you a bad name, so what? It's Hitler. It's a fucking animal. Why do I care if Hitler calls me a bad name? If somebody you like called you a bad name, it burns worse. It's not so much that he called me a bad name, it's just the not coming on the show. And it makes me feel like he looked up the content and was like, oh yeah, fuck that. Which burns. It completely burns. That hurts. I think Trump made deals with Russia and many other places. Trudy. I think he made business deals with Russia. Yeah, he did. As a fact. I mean, he did. He got loans from Russia because nobody else would loan him money. Nicholas Locke. Morning from Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam! Oh, God. The people probably don't remember that television show. Sometimes it sucks to meet your heroes. Fluffy. When Garry Kasparov, he's not a hero of mine, but God, his games are amazing. When he came out, when Jimmy Dore asked him that question and he flipped out on Jimmy Dore, oh man, it hurt to watch that. It hurt to watch that. It killed something in me to watch that. Or Keith Olbermann coming out saying that he was wrong about George Bush, like he was too hard on George Bush. Oh, that killed me. That killed me. You must understand, my political awakening to some degree came from people like Olbermann and Cedar and Tom Hartman and Maddow. Like it was this thing where you get this kind of pivot in a particular direction in the way you look at the world. With information, context, you start mixing that up with, looking into the historical context of that stuff, and you start getting this kind of understanding, this kind of view of the world. Keith Olbermann was one of my favorites. Hands down, he was one of my favorites. He would come out and he would go after Bush, balls out. I've never seen anything like it. Also, he would go after O'Reilly. Him going after O'Reilly and Glenn Beck is some of the funny shit you would ever see in your life. And Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs! Oh, God, it's funny. It's so hilarious. Jimmy Dore won't believe that there's any Russia involvement in our elections until he actually sees the tape of Trump pissing on the hookers. He's delusional. Indictments. What indictments? Well, an indictment is not a conviction. An indictment is just, this is the government's position on this event. We knew the government position was that Russia had something to do with it. That had been the disposition for God knows how long. When Mueller came up with those Russian, indictments, and then he was completely unready to push his case. Yeah, you forgot that one. He was completely not ready to push his case because he had no belief that the Russians was going to stand trial. So yeah, you can have any indictment you want because you know that there's nobody who's ever going to come and stand trial for that indictment, meaning nobody is ever going to see the information that you have at your disposal. It's a con. When Mueller wasn't selling this, and Mueller was back there selling weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, I'd imagine you'd be on the chat saying something similar. Yeah, he's not going to believe there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq until he can lick the uranium himself. there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Mueller is one of the guys that helped sell that lie that got 1 million people killed. Whether or not Russia has something to do with hacking into this election or not, I've always said I don't particularly know. But nothing that has taken place has proven it. It's just governmental assertions. We don't know who Guccifer is. And I don't understand how people can make this determination as if it's a word of God when the CIA has hacking tools itself that can mimic other actors. Nobody has gotten access to those servers. I'm making a point that it is not an insane disposition to say that this has not been proven, because as a flat fact, this has not been proven. And even if it is proven, I still say, so what? So what? I don't care. I don't care. It's like, you know, Hillary Clinton's Podesta email was hacked through a spear phishing that showed that Hillary Clinton was cheating Bernie Sanders. So you're telling me that I should care about cheating that revealed that you were cheating? Yeah, good luck. Good luck on that one. Good luck. Let's see. Anthony Reyes. Still laugh at Crowley naming race he got into power to screw their constituents over, like the shitty policies can be hidden by a minority doing it. Still laugh at Crowley naming races he got into. Oh, Jesus Christ. The wording's wrong. Still laugh at Crowley naming races he got into power to screw their constituents over, like the shitty policies can be hidden by a minority doing it. You know what's funny about the Crowley race? When Crowley got the endorsement of Ro Khanna, the thing that they were using to kind of cover this was, hey, Crowley is for the jobs program and Crowley is for something else. It's like, so Crowley over the course of a day moved his position in order to stave off what he considered to be a socialist coming after his ass. They rubbed themselves in lefties. Oh, they rubbed themselves in lefties. Anthony Reyes, and thank you, by the way, all of you who are donating Super Chat to the channel. Thank you very much. It really does help the show. Look, my capacity to do the show to some degree is dependent upon what comes in. So I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. How is Jumpy delusional? Treat will be fine. Why, when you want to just vet a candidate on their positions, are you accused of tearing them down? We just want to know where she stands for real. That's true. Agreed. Agreed. I think the problem here is, and it's not really a problem, but I think they're scared of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That any vetting of the candidate, God, this is so weird. This is so weird. Like, understand the situation we're in. So, imagine yourself for the moment, not a lefty. This wasn't Elizabeth Ocasio-Cortez, but this was Hillary Clinton. And the Democratic Party is dealing with lefties who are vetting Hillary Clinton to try to figure out where she stands on a host of issues. For the moment, jump back to Elizabeth Ocasio-Cortez, and you have a section of the population that says, oh, wait a minute. You guys are tearing her down because you guys are trying to piece out where she stands, and if she clarifies where she stands, it's going to be used against her. Fast forward or backwards to Hillary Clinton, with Democrats saying the exact same thing about any level of vetting for Hillary Clinton. I find this to be amazing. I love this. But to be honest, though, it's necessary. It's necessary. How else do I know? How else do I know where you stand if you don't tell me where you stand? And this idea of being able to evolve on a position, that scares the shit out of me. That scares. What does that mean? When you get to Congress, you're going to change? Yeah. People are concerned. I don't think they're crazy for being concerned. We'll go to Bernie Burrow. No more war, catalyst. How about just solutions? The only war the left should start is on hunger, poverty, etc. Agreed. Bill O'Reilly, LOL. Okay, time to smoke a bowl and get beauty rest. See y'all at 6 a.m. Jamal Sish. Right on. Right on, man. Smoke on. Smoke on. Alright, guys. This one has gone on for a while. I had an idea of have this video going on for like 10 minutes. And we've gone for like an hour and 15 minutes. That's awesome. Elephants on coke. Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day. The foundation does not support the few weighty swine eating the United States alive. MS3. Well, communism had one government. We have two. So because we have two parties, I should say one party, and we have two parties. We're twice as good as the Communist Republic. It's. I'm joking about the two-party thing, kind of. It's like you have two parties, you have other governments that have multiple parties, and somehow the two-party system is, the end-all be-all. This is the end of history. I don't think that's true. I think if people try to cling to it as if it is the end of history, oh God, we have hell awaiting us. Like to Rakani put a personal favor of supporting a candidate for the people, what to think. Well, here's the thing, man. The old Rokana thing, Rokana came with his tail between his legs, trying to explain why he did what he did, and even going so far as to give the other thing. He was receptive. He was receptive. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. I like it a lot. Smoke him if you got him. Lord Glitty, that's right. Smoke him if you got him. Smoking weed sounds like a good idea. Garden gnome. Uh-oh, we're having a smoke one if you got one. The cat that was on today, Jacob, I can't think of his last name. It's funny, when that conversation started, I thought, oh God, this is going to be fucking hilarious. He's, because of the way the conversation started, he was so adamant, he was so aggressive in getting his point across. And I'm like, all right, let's see where this goes. This is going to be fucking hilarious. Let's go. And he's like, people don't see the world the way it is. And I'm like, yeah, keep going. I agree. Because I thought at some point he was going to go headlong off of a cliff. Saying something that was just out there. And I realized as he was talking, I was like, I agree with like 90% of this. And the only thing I can really pick a point on is whether or not you could see the world as it is. That's an awesome 420. That's what made me think of. Jamal, are you high right now? Clyde Illusion. I am not. I wish I was. I am not. Winkle the Bernie bro. As Bernie was cheated. Puff puff. Kosh 963. I wonder, do we have enough for 420 on the question would be what it will be on. I like the Section 31 idea. I like the idea of whether or not it's possible to see reality the way the reality is. I love that. I even love this other idea, lumped onto that, about whether or not you can have a world where the world is not necessarily in conflict with one another. Meaning, the moment that one person draws a gun, the other person almost has to draw a gun just in order to keep a certain amount of parity. And how do you scale down and de-escalate in a situation like that? Do I give up my gun, and do you give up your gun, and am I going to give up my gun if I think there's any chance that you can take over my stuff? Fuck no, I'm not giving up my gun in that case, which means both of us are going to continue to keep guns. I'm interested in these questions because these questions get into the root of what it means to be a lefty, whether people realize it or not. It really does. Maybe that's a 420 by itself. Yeah, maybe that's a 420 by itself. All right, so I am Jacob called in for the 420. Bernie got less votes in the end. He was lost. No cheating was involved. The DNC lied through their teeth. Even if you want to go with the Donna Brazile level. Yeah, dude, you're talking about non-reality at this point. I can see you make the argument that the cheating that took place wasn't enough to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the race. I can see that position. That position makes sense to me. Debatable, but it makes sense. But to take a position that there was no cheating, it runs in the face of Donna Brazile's own testimony. That's my issue. Xander GC, government hasn't told the truth for 50 years, yet the truthful about Russia. Yeah, right. I know, right? I know. They've been lying. They trying to get Martin Luther King to commit suicide, but hey, that's no big deal. They the line from the standpoint of the CIA, oh God, the CIA was horrendous from the stuff that they were doing in South America, dealing with Cuba. Lying profusely. Even going back to weapons of mass destruction. Like, I'm amazed that after that debacle, lying to the degree that they were lying about weapons of mass destruction, even if you look at the fall of the Soviet Union and you look at the lies that were taking place in the Soviet Union, why do you believe that your government is all that different from the standpoint of the way they go about their affairs? I don't understand it. I don't understand this level of trust that's embedded in the people when they're looking at this stuff. The moment that you know your government has lied about something major, everything else comes into question about what you can trust your government on. And the fact is, governments have lied for God knows how long. They've lied about all sorts of things. Voter purges of that extent are normal. Well, Bill O'Reilly, he thinks they are. That's why I'm really skeptical when they start talking about UFOs. Catalyst. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I think, it's funny. It seems like my skepticism has upped a notch once I got into the political space. It just has. It's almost impossible to look at politics without being some degree skeptical and cynical. Or I should say modern politics. And the UFO issue, for whatever people want to call it, is politics. It is politics. So, Xander GC, except for closing voter stations, except for not covering Bernie Sanders filling stadiums, except for limiting debates, except for keeping Ed Schultz off the air when Ed Schultz wanted to talk about the Sanders thing, you can even make the case of firing Ed Schultz. It wasn't just the Democratic Party, it was also media and the collusion between those two things. But hey, the Democratic Party was supposed to be fair, and when they're going about their primaries, it was supposed to be non-partial. Hillary Clinton, we found out, was running the DNC at that point. But hey, according to Joe Terrizio, that's all fair. That's all fair. That's all perfect issue. Get rid of Democratic caucuses. Yes, agreed. Agreed. Get rid of undemocratic caucuses. I agree. But hey, let's also stop cheating. Let's also stop cheating. Come on. Bill Cooper warned they would pull a false flag alien attack at some point. Oh, Bill Cooper. I'm not one of those people who put stock in Bill Cooper. I think Bill Cooper was a lunatic. But that's me. Nicholas Locke. People always use the thing that because Bill Cooper was shot, that somehow Bill Cooper, that's evidence of Bill Cooper having something. That's also evidence that Bill Cooper might have been a lunatic. I understand it goes both ways. Trudy. Trump equals pay for play in government. Unfortunately, so did the Democratic Party. So did the Democratic Party. Progressives should have walked away from the table the moment superdelegates weren't abolished. Elephants on Coke. I agree with you. I agree with you. So there are two things, and there are two streams of thought. What they've done for the superdelegates, for the most part, have depowered superdelegates for the first round. The question is, how is that going to be used in practice? That's what I'm curious about. How does that work in practice? Now, I understand that for the most part, in that first round, they're gone. Like 15% of what was an election total at one point evaporate. Meaning the vote that you get from the delegates, providing major caveat that it's the first round, is what you get. Providing, you overcome plurality. But the moment that you don't overcome the plurality, superdelegates are back in the mix. And I strongly suspect that what the media is going to do is say, if this person doesn't win in the first round, who are you going to give your vote to? And that number is going to be displayed and says, if so-and-so doesn't win on the first round, this is what it's going to look like afterwards. Meaning the item of the number of people who are going to be a superdelegates is still going to get added, even though they're not necessarily going to have any power in the first round. But I am forced to admit that it is a change. It is a change. But I agree with you. There needs to be, to some degree, red lines from the standpoint of what we, as lefties, are willing to accept. My rule hasn't changed. Support the person who represents your interests. That's where I am. That's why I've stayed. That's where I am. I'm comfortable in that position. I'm not moving from that position, at least from the time frame. So yeah. All right, I'm going to end this. I don't care about the past right now. Trump is making business deals in exchange for government action now. But Trudy, Hillary Clinton, look, I mean, I understand what you're saying on this point. But what do you think? What do you think Iraq was? I mean, you have a country that was demolished, and now they're putting oil companies in Iraq. That sounds like a business deal to some degree, using the United States military to smash a country in order to give companies oil. Obama didn't unravel that. He didn't bring the troops home. He expanded the number of troops that were over there in those countries. I get your point. You're saying they're making business deals and everything else. I'm just making the point to you that the government itself, to some degree, has functioned at the behest of business. Let's stop pretending that Donald Trump, all of this is somehow completely unique to Trump on this. I want all of this to change. But I'm not taking this attitude that this is somehow fundamentally different with Trump. I agree with you that the guy is a goddamn goblin. He is a horrendous person. He's a horrendous person. I don't want him in that office. I'm embarrassed that he's in that office. When he opens his mouth, it embarrasses me. So, agreed. Agreed. But Democrats are not your savior. That's the only point that I'm trying to get at. They're not your savior. I mean, you had Obama come in and gave a giveaway to the drug and insurance companies. Nobody bitched and moaned. Republicans complained, but Republicans were complaining because they didn't necessarily want people to get health care. Ultimately, they looked at this as, to some degree, there's a moderate tax that's applied at some point on the plutocrats, in which case they didn't want to pay. Not to mention they don't like the situation of people getting health care. Yeah, I think they're that unempathetic and depraved. Now, Trump is doing it for something else. I'm just trying to make the point to you that Donald Trump is horrendous, but let's not pretend that he's something unique and something completely different. I will give you this, that's different. He's more over the top. I mean, he's putting in Betsy DeVos and some of these other people. Yes, you might have had the other parties that are going to loot the system, but no, they don't necessarily loot the system to the degree that Trump is going to loot the system from the people he's putting in office. I agree with you that specifically in specific situations, he's worse. But I'm talking about the overall and the trajectory of the government has remained constant, whether you're talking about Bush, Obama, or Trump. Trump is a dumber version of Bush. But Obama, you could say, smoothed the rough edges of Bush. But they didn't put him in office to smooth the edges of Bush. They put him in office to change the edifice itself. And the edifice was not changed with the last president who screamed that he was involved with hope and change. Now, what is the public and population to do? One of the parties has outright lied in regards to what they were going to get. Now, you can say, he would say, well, I didn't lie. I said I was going to do hope and change. And that's such a nebulous thing that nobody really knows what that means. But the public clearly had an idea of what they thought it was going to mean. And they didn't get it. Do you realize I've had people who say I voted for Obama purely because he was black? Whites. I voted for him because he was black. I thought he was going to change it. He didn't change it. I've had others tell me, I voted for Obama. I thought he was going to change. He didn't change it. I'm giving Trump a chance. The public wants something different. You got Trump because of the failures of the last president. Now, Trump is horrendous. But this idea of vote blue, no matter who, I'm not on board with. I'm not on board. And yeah, I am in this mindset that if it needs to burn down, then it needs to burn down. It's not that I want to see it burn down, but no, I'm no longer putting my support in people who I think are not representing my interests. Do I have to curse Hillary Clinton every time I mention Trump? No, you don't have to curse Hillary Clinton every time you mention Trump, Trudy. I guess, no, you don't. That's fair. That's fair. Look, the reason why people make arguments like this and they invoke Hillary on this is because there's a certain amount of hypocrisy in the arguments that tend to be used against Trump. That's why. It's like, well, Trump is doing this. And it's like, yeah, but Hillary Clinton was doing this. I mean, how are Democrats angry at him for this when she was doing this? They had no issue with voting for her doing this. Do you see where they come from on this? There seems to be a certain amount of hypocrisy in the way people tend to go after Trump. That's all. That's why people tend to invoke Hillary Clinton. But I understand it. You're not one of those people who are Hillary Clintonites. You look at this and say Donald Trump is a goddamn maniac and we need to get rid of Donald Trump. And I agree with you. I do agree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. Oftentimes I'm seeing the arguments for Democrats. And those Democrats tend to be hypocritical with a jetpack. They would say things. And they would say things as if, what they're saying is completely and utterly detached from anything else they've said or anything else that have taken place. Meaning, there's a level of hypocrisy that are built oftentimes into the arguments. Donald Trump says he's going to go after whistleblowers. Democratic Party comes up and says, we must protect the whistleblowers because this president is trying to stop people from releasing information about government affairs. Now, these same Democrats had no issue with Obama using the Espionage Act to obscene extent for waste, fraud, and abuse. No issue. All of a sudden, they're a protector of the noble whistleblower. This is what I'm getting at. This is just one example. There are multiple examples where the Democratic Party has come out with these hypocritical, obscene positions attacking Donald Trump. missing what they did prior in the last 8 years. That's all I mean, Trudy. You don't have to curse Hillary Clinton every time you say something about Trump. That's fair. That's fair. You're right. Creative experiments. George W. Bush and Obama started more wars than Trump ever could. Donald Trump, I have this. Look at this. Donald Trump seeks direct talks with the Taliban. I looked at that and said, oh my God. Now, this is also in coordination with Donald Trump seeking talks with North Korea, taking those talks. Good. I hope something comes from that. And in this case, there was something else. Donald Trump talking with Vladimir Putin. People hate that. But I like when 90% of the world's nuclear weapons are held in hands of people who are less hostile to one another. They're positives. I don't know what Donald Trump's angle is. But under Obama, we were going to be in Afghanistan and Iraq in perpetuity. Under any random Republican, we would have been in Iraq and Afghanistan in perpetuity. This is not a defense of Trump. I'm just making a point that there are positives and negatives. And whatever you get, the question is, what are those positives and negatives? Donald Trump is a massive negative on the whole. But there are certain positives. Especially when it comes down to this thing of war. My problem with Donald Trump has to do with Iran. If he turns around and creates some kind of war with Iran, then all bets are off. Then this argument that Trump supporters sometimes comes up with this guy is supposedly getting the Nobel Peace Prize, forgetting the fact that the number of people he's murdering with drones has spiked by like 4. So the Nobel Peace Prize thing seems like nonsense to me. It's what people dislike his tone. They're acting as if he's something fundamentally different. I guess my point is, Trudy, he's not something fundamentally different. He's not a massive departure from world order. He's a massive departure in the things that he says. That's all. That's all I try to mean. I love whistleblowers. I love whistleblowers too. That should be on the shirt. That should be on the shirt. God, that needs to be on the shirt. Now, seriously, I thought people should have a plan in case shit breaks for real. Start our own shit somewhere. That I don't disagree with you on either. I don't disagree with you on either. All right, guys. My powers are fading, and we've been on here for like an hour. I think I've done videos for like 6 hours or 5 hours today. I can never finish. I think what it is when I do live videos, especially when I allow call-ins, I like call-ins when I'm spoiling for a fight. So when I'm spoiling for a fight, it's like, yes, let's have some call-ins. Let's bump uglies. Let's do it. But sometimes they drain up time. And I think they drain up energy and resources. Now, so what I think I might start doing, I've been thinking about this show in a more, in a different way. I've been trying to think of how to make it better. And people have given me ideas, and I'm going to take those ideas. So a green screen is one of those ideas. Balthazar recommended Stream Share. It's not called Stream Share. What is it called? I have it on my desktop. What is your name? What is your name? What is your name? What is your name? Streamlabs, right? Streamlabs. Streamlabs. I've been thinking about even hiring my nephew to do hashtags and cut videos and stuff like that. So if the format of the show changes, because the way I'm thinking of it is, I don't know who's here to hear this part, but if the format turns into, okay, let's have one show throughout the day, like a main show that's 3 hours long, per se, 3-4 hours long. And through that, have call-ins, have smaller segments, those type of things. Like trying to make the show a show that's somewhat standardized in the way I go about it. Where if I'm in, having insomnia or something like that, I can still always do my regular pop-ins. But trying to get something standardized to try to get more people to come, and having the segments where those segments can be cut and uploaded for more people to get their hands on it. Yeah, I'm trying. So, let's see. If you think Israel just takes it, thought you're crazy. Yeah, Israel doesn't just take it. They've been out there bombing. Imagine he stopped aggression with Taliban, Putin, North Korea, fair play, but that would ruin global, yes, birth control in Mexico City brought back, yes, all bets are off if he goes to war with Iran. Yeah, all bets are off if he goes to war with Iran. But can you imagine if Donald Trump creates a peace deal with the Taliban? Oh my God. It's mind-blowing. That would be mind-blowing. Because it gives you this idea of political space when you have no fucks left to give. Like, one of the things that Jacob said is right. Fear is somewhat of a problem. The thing I was trying to get with Jacob is being fearless is nonsense. Yes, you need to be fearless to a certain degree, but there also needs to be an awareness of what's taking place outside of you. You being fearless, there's a lot of dead people in the cemetery for being fearless. That being said, fear is somewhat of a problem when you're going about your affairs and you're trying to get things done. He's right and he's wrong. He's right and he's wrong at the same time, if that makes sense. I guess it's contextual. If you and I are playing a game of chess, and I estimate that you're going to take a certain action if I do something speculative, I can be fearless. I can still be fearless and wrong. I can lose that goddamn game. Or I can be fearless, in this case, being right. Sometimes it depends on the perspective of the person who you're dealing with and having a clear perspective of what that person is going to do and what that person may do and the capabilities that are within that person's dimensions and whether or not they're willing to fully express those capabilities. Sometimes that is impossible to know. That is hard to know on the chessboard, let alone in the real world physical matter reality to which we inhabit. Fear is a good thing at times. But yeah, fear can be a pain in the ass than others. Knowing your surroundings is the point, I guess. Jamal can be the new think take host on TYT. Hell no. I don't want to get that job and only be fired a year later. Who the hell wants to work at TYT if they know they're going to be axed a year later into the job? I wonder when all those people gave that $2 million, did those people know that that $2 million was only for 1 year? Did they know it was only for 1 year? So yeah. All right, I'm going to end this. I would love to get Will Benny on. Yeah. I tried. I'm trying to get his not Will Benny. What's the other cat? God, I'm awful with names. It's the other cat from Vips. I'm trying to get him onto the show. I have a contact that's friends with him, and I'm trying to use that contact to essentially nicely massage his ear to try to get him to come onto the show. That doesn't help that I can't remember his goddamn name. It's not Bill Biddy. It's the one that was strong-armed out of the war criminals thing. God damn it, my brain is losing me on this. Nobody wants to talk about Trump's crimes. I try to talk about him, Trudy, especially when you get into the war crimes and stuff like that. But the problem with talking about Trump's war crimes is you end up back into the Obama war crimes. And how do you have this selective justice where you say this one is horrendous, but the other one is not? Or if you're talking about local crimes. Now, look, if you're talking about if you're talking about the emollients clause, then yes, I would agree with you. We're hand in hand. But nobody's talking about that. Like, it's like the thing that they're talking about is Russia. And I take that to be somewhat, to be somewhat self-serving. You have the emollients clause. You don't want to use the emollients clause. You want to use the Russia thing. All right, you're using the Russia thing for a very specific reason. What's the specific reason that you're using the Russia thing? There's certain people in a society who just wants to pin it on Trump and wants to say that Hillary Clinton did lose before her own marriage. She lost because of Trump and Russia. All right, fair enough. You don't like this idea that she lost. And so you're trying to make up excuses for why she lost. The emollients clause doesn't give you that. Russia does. That's the reason why they're using Russia as opposed to the emollients clause. At least that's my thoughts. Turning the White House into a cash machine. Yeah, the problem with that is you had another campaign that was willing to do it. Look, I guess my problem with this is, how do you hit one for something that you are going to completely ignore for the other? I'm not saying you, Trudy. I'm just saying, how do you bring up his monetizing the White House when nobody cared that Clinton was monetizing the State Department? Do you understand my dilemma here? It's selective justice. It's justice for one with ignoring things for the other. I don't understand how that's okay. Donald Trump gets a pass on monetizing the White House because Clinton got a pass on monetizing the State Department. You can't have it both ways. The problem is the moment that you allow one, you allow the other at the same time. That's my issue with this, Trudy. Trump derangement syndrome is real. I don't think people are deranged for being fearful or problematic for Trump. I think Trump can be an absolute menace. What he's doing from the environmental standpoint, what he's doing for regulations, he's fucking horrendous. I mean, he's putting people in departments that are outwardly and overtly destroying those governmental departments. It's as if Donald Trump was put into government to destroy government itself. So I don't think people are crazy for saying, oh my God, this guy's a goddamn maniac. By the same token, my issue with this is hitting him with stuff that people gave other people a pass on. That's my issue. I think that's the issue of people who are on the left who look at this and say, look, if you have such a problem with Trump, then maybe your Democratic Party should behave in a different way where you can use these attacks on him in a non-hypocritical way. That's their issue. That's why they bring up Clinton. That's why they bring up Obama. That's why they bring up things that the Democratic Party did. Because they're trying to make it very clear to the public that if you hate this, if you don't like that he's doing this, then why were you okay with him doing this? Or why were you okay with this when it was under some other administration? That's the reason, Trudy. And I suspect you know that. So I don't want to mansplain. I'm mansplaining to people who don't know that. I'm just making the point it is a hard argument to make that something that one person was doing is okay that was a part of another party. But something that somebody else is doing is horrendous and bad and the world is coming to an end. And that seems to be the way that people are arguing the thing with Donald Trump. The world is coming to an end. We've fallen off of a cliff. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet, and that asteroid started the moment that Donald Trump took office. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Civil disobedience. The thing is, it would only work if nobody ever get a pass again. Okay, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. You're saying that hypocrisy to some degree is built into the political process, that the only way that argument works is if you don't allow somebody to get a pass who's on your side. Agreed. Which is why people are so critical of Ocasio-Cortez. I think that's what you're saying in action. Tune it. Ray McGovern. That's his name, Ray McGovern. Thank you, Tune it. Ray McGovern. Is Sylar and Leopard the same person? I've never seen them in one chat. No, I don't think they are. I think they're different. They're different. They're different. They're different. Jimmy Dore has a right. Fuck both parties. Kosh 963 agreed. Start now here. All right, Trudy, I'm starting here. The world is upside down. Glenn Greenwald was just claiming Assad in Syria. Now he's back in Putin in Russia. What the fuck is happening? Trudy, I don't think he sees a flaw in his argument. No, I don't see the flaw in my argument. I think my argument is fine. Temple, Trudy, is everyone's type. You try to keep him away from where your kids came, but he ruins it. I never gave any of them a pass. Okay, go for it. Corruption is the number one problem of this planet and should be punished by death. Wow, that's strong. I think you should organize your system in a way that doesn't allow corruption, or at the very least tries to stop corruption, not necessarily try to punish it after the fact. But I feel you. Elephants on Coke. Show idea. Take an issue. Start with Trump now, then move in reverse chronological order all the way to Reagan and before. That's interesting. Take an issue. Start with Trump and move backwards to Reagan. I guess you could do it. I mean, I do historical stuff sometimes. I guess it depends on the topic. The thing that my wife came up with was let the audience choose a topic, or let your patrons choose a topic. But see, sometimes patrons choose complicated topics that can't necessarily be done in the context of a story. Like, any story that's done has to be done in the context of what's taking place currently. Otherwise, nobody pays attention. It's like what happens, like if you're saying, let's discuss Slashdrop Zizek's day after the revolution. Well, that's an awesome topic. I love that topic. I love, Slashdrop is fucking awesome. But nobody knows who he is. And discussing it, people are like, what the hell is he talking about? Because it's not tethered to a particular story that's taking place in the news. So it has to be careful with the way it's done. But Elephants on Coke, I do like it. I don't hate it. Take an issue, start with Trump now, then move in reverse chronological order to Reagan. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. JT takes my wife, starts now, reverses in chronological order all the way to Reagan. She calls her butt Reagan. What? Wait a minute. That's my shirt, JT. I've been looking for it for months. California. Trudy, blaming the system lets us off the hook. Okay. TLME, what the fuck? Trudy, do you want to call in? Trudy, if you want to call in, I'm okay with you calling in to make your point. I'm not taking anybody else's call, but I'll take yours. I want you to make your case. My energies are running low, but I want you to make your case. Have Slajov on. I would love to have Slajov on. You know his phone number or email address? Fucking love him. He's a fascinating guy, man. He's a fascinating guy. Call Trudy. Yeah, I want you to call Trudy. I don't care if you're high. That's when the best stuff comes out, Trudy. Do you need me to get inebriated also so we can have this conversation if that makes you more comfortable? I'm so high. I don't care, Trudy. I want you to call in. That's even better. Agreed. That's even better. That's even better. Trudy, if you want to call in, I will open phone lines for you. I want you to make your case. Jay Scott wants you to make your case. All of these people want you to make your case. Yeah, see, look, everybody wants you to make your case, and all these people are stoned. So yes, everybody else is stoned too, Trudy. They're all high. They're all high. You're in good company. You're in good company. Trudy's louder. Jay Scott's like, Trudy's louder. Everybody says, call Trudy. Trudy. Elephants on Coke says, I'm stoned. Jay Scott, open the phone lines and Jacob may call. No. I want Trudy to call. Trudy. Oh, Trudy calling. Is this Trudy? Hello, is this Trudy?
You're good company. It's me. Hang on, let me shut you up. Okay.
Right on. All right, Trudy. I want you to make your case. That's why I wanted you to call it. Make your case. Now, what am I missing? First, explain the situation. Explain our point of contention, and explain what I'm missing in the understanding of your point of contention.
I'm not saying you're really missing anything. I'm just saying your focus is on, well, everybody else has done it too, so blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if it's been done before, you got to stand up now.
Oh, I understand that, but here's the thing. Would you agree with me that we are in somewhat of a political system and there's a rule set to the political system? And if Bob grabs a gun, then I am stuck with grabbing a gun because I need to protect myself from Bob. So to some degree, it's almost like a mechanical process to which we function under a rule set, and people who are functioning under the rule set get it almost becomes automatic. So so for example, say that rule set applies. Let's look at the world. And let's say, all right, Vladimir Putin and Russia invaded the Crimea. Now, I think that was done by vote, but let's say that is right. Let's say that Vladimir Putin invaded the Crimea. Do we, as an international community, ignore all of the things that were done by the United States and all of the things that were done in these other countries as they were taking land and everything else? Nobody cared. But now we're applying world justice to Vladimir Putin. Is that fair?
No, of course not.
Is it fair that Hillary Clinton would monetize the State Department, getting money from, Morocco and all these other places where it was like a slush fund?
I was against that. I'm still against it, and I still think she should pay for it, of course.
And I agree. And I guess what I'm saying is I totally understand that you were against it. Like, I didn't think you were for it. I guess what I'm saying is we're stuck in a weird political quagmire where it seems like the system of justice is similar.
That was what I focused on at the time. I didn't think about how I was still fucking pissed at Ronald Reagan or Green. When it was Hillary doing it, I was pissed at Hillary. I mean, Obama.
Yeah. I guess my point to this, though, is
I got pissed when it was Bill Clinton. I griped about it and made a point about it and pushed the idea that, God damn it, this is wrong.
This is wrong.
I didn't talk about, but Hillary did it too. Or Obama's words.
Well, my problem...
What difference does that make at this point, right now?
I agree with
you. The world.
I agree with
Donald Trump is a threat to the world.
Here's the problem.
He's worse than anybody.
Here's the problem. Say for the moment you're right. and say for the moment the political class is able to take Donald Trump out on the rail because you say, look at all these financial crimes that Donald Trump has done. Now, the next person gets in office, it's a Democrat, and everybody shuts up even though they're doing something similar.
No, everybody don't shut up.
But they did for Hillary.
If their office is going to be...
But they did for Hillary. But this is my point. They did it for Hillary. They shut up for Hillary. And if we had President Hillary, nobody would be talking about money and politics. Which means that this is somewhat selective to Trump. That's all. That's my only issue with this. If it's across the board, no issue. None. Zero. I hated the fact that Hillary Clinton was able to walk with that slush fund, and all of this emphasis is put on Donald Trump, and nobody cared about digging into the details of the Clinton Foundation. And if Clinton got elected, nobody would care. But that's my only issue. It's not used across the board. It's used specific for political hits.
That, but I don't care. I don't care if nobody cared, if they would have cared. What difference does would have made?
But you understand it becomes selective justice. You use that club only for one side, with the other side getting away.
No, it is not. It is selective to say, well, everybody else has done it, and the next guy's going to do it. You live in the now. You don't live in the tomorrow or yesterday.
No, that's true. But if in the previous, one of the parties skates, I'm trying to get at this idea of selective justice where the law or the weight of the public attention is being used on one side, but never the other side. And that comes across as being magnificently unfair.
For his crimes or...
That's right. Bush walked. Now, and that's another thing. Bush walked.
Obama
said, I'm looking...
always say, your guy did it too.
Obama said, I'm looking forward, I'm not looking back. Now, this is on war crimes, mind you. Now, explain to me again. Bush is out there finger painting right now. Bush invaded the country, killed 1 million people, and destabilized that entire region of the world. He is out there finger painting, no consequence. Obama,
I know,
90% civilians killed with those drones, no consequence. And now Donald Trump comes in office and it's like, that guy's monetizing. We need to have a consequence. That doesn't seem a little weird?
Worse than the last one because we always let them get away with it because your guy did it too.
But Trudy, I would agree with you if it was used across the board. Now, look, don't misunderstand me. My position is not that I love corruption. That's not my position. And I hate to even have to say it that way. My position is selective justice is not justice. If it's not going to be used across the board, then it's difficult to make the argument for using it for somebody else. If you're going to say that I hated that Clinton was able to monetize the State Department, but she was able to get away with it. I hated that Bush was able to walk away with essentially killing all of these people, but he was able to get away with it. I hate the war crimes. Like, I'm saying that I understand that Donald Trump is horrendous. I agree with you.
I know you do.
I agree with you. I think he's a goddamn monster. But I don't want the Democratic Party to be able to use a witch hunt to go after somebody when they wouldn't use it on their own person. That's my issue with this. It becomes a political witch hunt.
It's not my nose to spite the Democrats.
Say it one more time.
I said you're cutting off my nose to spite the Democrats.
You could say that. But is it fair to say that if one of the party is able to use a political witch hunt to go about their ends but would never use it for their own person, meaning if the same situation had a Hillary Clinton as opposed to a Donald Trump, that the Democratic Party would have shut up?
You know what? One reason why I think Hillary didn't have to pay any consequences is because the damn Republicans made it look like a witch hunt.
Yeah, but I guess I'm getting at something more fundamental from the standpoint of the rule of law. The rule of law is supposed to be across the board. So say, for instance, if African Americans get picked up 4 times more than whites for the standpoint of drugs. Now, say, for example, that one person is let off. A cop lets off one, but then a cop picks up another, and the cop says, look, I can't just keep letting people off. I got to take people in. And he takes somebody in this kind of selective way. Now, you would say, wait a minute, that cop can't make a determination on who he wants to let go and who he wants to take in. He's playing favorites. How on earth can this cop play favorites?
That's all in one night.
Yeah, that could be all in one night. But I'm just making the point that you can see the problem with a cop making a determination to play favorites and going about his affairs. There are going to be some people who say, wait a minute, that's not fair. How are you letting that person off, but you're picking me up? That's not fair. Yes, I had this
What's
back.
the answer, Jamal? What's the answer?
What you mean? What's the answer? The answer is to be fair across the board. The answer is fairness.
How can you be fair across the board? You can't go into the past. All you can do is deal with what we're dealing with right now and deal with the consequences of it, which is going to be political.
Yes, but you can also...
You have to say, this is where we draw the fucking line.
Yes, but it's really half-hearted to say we're going to draw the line after we've let somebody else off.
We didn't. It wasn't me and you, Jamal. It wasn't anybody that's on the progressive left.
No,
and I'm talking about what we focus on.
But the thing
not what the country focuses on. Of course, they're not gonna.
But there is something involved in this from the standpoint of the left. We do have stakes in this. So, why did Hillary Clinton lose? I'm asking you. Why did she lose? Why did she lose the race?
Well, because she was a shitty candidate.
Right. Now, we know that. We know that. I love that. Just straightforward to the point. She was a shitty candidate. Now, but say you're a Democrat. Do you believe that Hillary Clinton was a shitty candidate? If you're a Democrat, say you're just Hillary supporter 101. If you're a Hillary supporter 101, do you, Hillary supporter, believe that Hillary Clinton was a shitty candidate? Or do you believe that it was Trump and Russia, that Russia hacked the political system, allowing Hillary Clinton to win? Which one do you believe? That Hillary Clinton was a shitty candidate or that Russia got Trump elected?
You can't please all the people tomorrow. I mean, who cares what Hillary supporters think?
I care because they are going to scream at the height of their lungs that Hillary Clinton didn't lose on her own merits. That she didn't lose because their philosophy of status quo failed.
Okay, I'll just go lay down then.
No, Trudy, I guess maybe I'm saying two things. I'm saying, and I know it sounds like I'm saying I'm eating, like the thing I'm saying it sounds like I'm eating itself. But I'm not. I'm saying justice needs to be fair. And I think you would agree with me on that. But in order for it to be fair, though, it has to be done across the board to some degree. It can't be, I'm playing favorites.
What are you going to do? A mass indictment of every president, every politician?
Yes. Yeah, you got to start somewhere, right? And if you start somewhere, you can't start somewhere with the standpoint of going after one person. This is what I'm getting at. It's not that I'm against. Look, if they said we're going to go after Trump for the emollients,
you go after one crime.
Okay, well, one
crime. The crime that you see occurring, whenever you see it, you go after it. You don't say, oh, well, I can't go after this because somebody else did it 20 years ago.
But it's not 20 years ago.
You can't let a guy off for murder just because somebody else got away with it.
Well, but also you can't selectively choose the people who you want to indict for murder. Can you?
No, all you can do is live in the now.
Wait. You haven't answered that. Is it fair for you to pick and choose who gets indicted for murder?
I'm not picking and choosing.
You are.
No, the space-time has gone over me.
Space-time is not picking. No, you, Trudy, are picking and choosing. This is what I mean.
No,
look, you can impeach your credibility.
Because I always lived in the now. When it was Obama, I was like, God damn it, Obama.
But Trudy, okay, let me say this way. Let's meet in the middle on this. I agree with you that crimes should be prosecuted. High crimes, corruption, especially. Let's say corruption. Corruption must be prosecuted. Agreed. I agree with you that whether or not that's Trump, whether that's Obama, whether that's somebody in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, whatever, I agree with you that corruption is a horrendous problem. Agreed. I think our disagreement and the crux of it is, look, if Trump committed a crime, Trump should go to prison. Whether or not somebody else had previously committed that crime, you got to start somewhere. The problem, and again, so my problem with this is, that's unfair. It's fundamentally unfair. I keep thinking, I go back to the cop argument. If I'm a cop and I see somebody and I say I'm going to let this guy go because maybe I like the pants that he's wearing, but I'm going to, I stop a woman in a car. She's gorgeous. And it's stopping this woman in the car and she's gorgeous. I give her a pass. I say, all right, look, you've been speeding. You got pot on your breath, but hey, you're hot. So I'm letting you go. Fair enough. I'm being sexist. I'm letting you go. The next guy, stop. Just a guy. You get a ticket. Is that fair?
Tomorrow, you're just arguing for letting everybody off because somebody got off.
No, no, it's not that. What I'm getting
That's
at
what it
is
sounds like. And what's the result of your action
answer.
or
Wait, before I go further, answer that question. Is that fair?
Of course not.
Okay. Now we're
No,
going
it's
to political
terribly
actors.
unfair.
Now we're dealing with political
and
actors.
it's going to keep on getting more and more unfair.
Right.
Because
but
each president is worse than the last.
now suppose for the moment that every time I stop a woman in a car, I let her off. But every time I stop a guy in a car, I give him a ticket. Would that be fair?
Tomorrow,
I'm asking.
you
I'm
can't
just asking.
be
I'm
fair.
asking.
You can't go back and prosecute Clinton.
Trudy.
You can't go back and prosecute Bush. They won't do it.
I understand
and they
that.
probably they'll never do anything about Trump either.
I understand that.
To be
But answer
fair,
that question for
to
me.
be fair,
Is that fair? Is it fair for me to
stop
pick and
Trump
choose?
from making things worse and worse and worse.
Well, let me make my point. I agree with you that we can't do this
Not-
thing. We
it's
can't
not
go back in time and
Trump
perpetuity.
versus Hillary. It's Trump versus us.
But it's not Trump. No, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think it's the political class versus us. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And my thing is, it is fundamentally unfair to say one party will be indicted for crimes, but the other party will not be indicted for crimes. Because
Of course it
ultimately,
is.
that's so unfair. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And
I know. I agree with that.
now, if it was something
But
to the
what was
effect
that?
of there is a widespread crackdown on corruption, I'm in. Because if you get Trump with something like that, you're getting Trump in just and across the board, we're going after people for corruption. We're being earnest about our way of going about it. That's more fair. But you have a political process. And in that political process, one of the parties is saying that this guy is monetizing the White House. Fair enough. I agree with you. If you're going for the emollients clause, I would probably shut up. But they're not. And in this guy monetizing the White House, they gave a pass to the other person monetizing the White House. So, I mean, or pauses at the State Department. So I'm stuck in this disposition. I know that this is a political witch hunt where they're going after him for political reasons. I know this. Even you know this. I think you would agree with this. But they ignored the other person who was in the other party. That seems so unfair to me. Like, it seems politically untenable to make the argument that says we can go after one, but we're not going to look at the other. I mean, if it was across the board, Trudy, yes.
I'm not arguing with that. It is totally unfair. They should have gone after Clinton. They should have gone after Bush. But
they're not. But they didn't.
Don't buy no potatoes.
And the very next president that comes in, if it's a Democrat, they would shut up about it.
And we'll have to let them off.
Right, but they would
Because
shut
you
up
let
about it.
Trump off.
But they'll let him off. I guess what I'm saying is they would let that next president off.
Okay, let's just keep letting them off then.
No, I don't think we're that far divided. I think we're hitting our head on this thing of selective justice. Like, you would agree with me that it's not necessarily fair. I think your point is whether it's fair or not, you got to start somewhere. Is that fair?
It's not selective justice. It's justice. One thing has nothing to do with the other. It may be unfair, but it's unrelated. The fact is, Donald Trump is monetizing big time the White House.
Why do you think they're not bringing up the emollients clause?
Because they don't want to.
Why
they
not?
don't want to discuss money.
But why not?
They don't want to talk about money.
Yeah, right. But I'm asking you something more fundamental. They hate Donald Trump's guts. Maxine Waters threw Michael Tracy down to the ground.
Same thing.
Right. All of them said we're trying to impeach this president. All right, fair enough. You're trying to impeach this president. Now you're saying he's monetizing the White House. Great. If he's monetizing the White House, they hate his guts like nobody's business. Why on earth aren't they using that? Explain that to the audience.
Because Hillary did the same thing.
But you said it shouldn't matter.
What?
You said that what Hillary did was completely unrelated to what Donald Trump is doing.
As far as whether you should stand up against it or not, and whether you should be able to separate the two in your mind, I mean, you don't let murderers off because some other murderers got off. You don't let thieves run because thieves get away with it.
But you understand that's a complete
Stand against this particular crime at this particular time.
But truly,
and and let the politics be damned.
But Trudy, hear me out. That
Okay.
model, what you're saying, breaks down legal order. It completely,
What?
it dismantles any notion of laws. What you're saying, because they are related. Like the reason that is unfair.
No.
It does.
Trump's crime has no relation to Hillary's. It has
No.
no relation whatsoever.
Trudy, I'm telling
Hillary
you.
did what she did. Trump did what he did. It's like saying somebody's dog bit the neighbor, so my dog's going to get away with it.
No, that's not it. It's more like saying, I'm letting off blinds because I think blinds are hot, but I'm giving guys tickets. It breaks down the legal order. It's no longer law anymore because you're not following any particular standard. The guy who's giving off the tickets is making up his own standard. It's unfair. It's fundamentally unfair. The whole point of law is to some degree of fairness under the law.
Well, I understand that you're saying it's totally unfair and the politics of it is not going to work, but I don't understand your stance on it.
What do you mean?
I mean, have you ever done a show discussing it?
Oh, my
Discussing that Trump is doing all this deal making in exchange for action in the government.
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like pay-for-play politics. I don't like corruption in my government at all. I think when Trump took office, I accepted something to be true. I said, oh my God, this is going to suck. That's what I thought.
Where do you take a stand?
Yeah, I agree with you. I said this is going to be horrendous. I thought he was going to put a Latvian hooker on the Supreme Court. I thought he was going to just, put people to implode those offices. He put Bond villains in one slot after the next. Betsy DeVos, Noonan's falling apart. All of these horrendous people in these positions in this way of almost destroying the positions that he's putting people in. I knew it was going to be horrendous. I knew it. I had no expectations of it being anything other than horrendous. I thought he was going to loot the place, and that's what he's done.
Well, Jamal, I love you madly.
Oh,
I love you,
Trudy.
so,
I appreciate this.
I can't stand this phone anymore.
Fair enough.
I'm not a telephone person.
Well,
I'd rather hang up and listen to you.
No, thank you for calling in, Trudy. I appreciate it. I wanted you to get your point of view out because I wanted to understand where you were coming from. So I understand, like you said, I'm so high right now. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you
All right.
for everything.
Let's see.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see. Did my volume drop? Oh, my volume dropped. Sometimes when I'm on the phone, the volume goes down. All right. So I love that conversation. Let's see. Good job, Trudy. Elephants on Coke. Jamal, use this $2 for a second place trophy. Oh, Elephants on Coke. That's funny. Take the issue of Reagan. There was no second place trophy. I love that Trudy called in. That's awesome. That's awesome. Show your public servants' assets, full disclosure. Show us your naughty bits or get 86th. See, Trudy, I love that. I love that. Catalyst. Wow, Trudy, you were so high. What were you even saying? Just kidding. No, she was awesome. She made her point. It's funny. It's not that I even fundamentally disagree with the point. It's just either you have a country of laws or not. And if you're in this kind of funhouse democracy where, laws apply to some, but it doesn't apply to others, I think you're going to run into trouble. That's my issue. But I understand where you're coming from, Trudy. And I appreciate you calling in. Hillary's still alive and her crimes are still relevant. Nicholas Locke. Jamal, I want to offer you a show on TYT. Cal, that's funny. Unless that's the real Cal, in which case it would just be hilarious. Jamal wants to win. TLOME. No. My goal for Trudy. No. I wanted to understand what she was saying. It's slightly different. I wanted to understand what she was saying. I'll call next time high too. Oh God, that's hilarious. Brom SL1. My wages are going up and everything is just fun. from the perspective of a dumbass conservative. I've met those people, libertarians. I used to work with this guy who was a libertarian. And he was like, yeah, man, the government shouldn't be taking my taxes. And the only way that people should pay for charity is if they're going and putting money into a charity. And it's like, you believe charities have enough resources to deal with all of the poverty in the United States? Yes. Okay. Just a fucking idiot. Jamal Trudy kicked you in the face. I don't think that took place, but okay. Eat the rich. Hashtag eat the rich. Agreed. Alright, guys. I'm going to end this. This has gone on for like, Jesus Christ, 2 hours. Oh, man. I've been doing videos for like 6 hours today. So, I am going to end this. Look, I want to thank everybody for participating. Trudy, thank you for calling in, man. Good sport, like nobody's business. I appreciate it. Look, I don't mind... when I do call-ins, I enjoy the banner to some degree. I don't mind the back and forth on the left. I don't necessarily think it makes things weaker. And sometimes it helps clarify positions. Sometimes there are things where I hit my head on like, oh, that's a good point. Or even come up with better arguments, if that makes sense. There was an argument I had with Lee Stranahan when we were on the radio. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be on the radio show by any means necessary on Friday. I'm driving up to DC again. But with Lee Stranahan, he says something I had never heard before. He made this argument about Hitler being a lefty. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Now, you can't say what the fuck are you talking about on the radio. But it's one of those things where it comes out of such left field. I've never heard anybody make that argument. And you're on the spot and somebody, all right, now, what do you have to say about that? It's like, I don't know what to say about that. I think it's a bullshit argument, but in the split second that I've been given to answer this, I have no fucking clue. And you're like put on the spot, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't, what? And you're like, I understand what he's saying, but this is a nonsense argument, and it takes a moment. It's a weird thing. Sometimes having those arguments help hash it out. And by the way, Hitler was not a left-winger. Hitler was an authoritarian who was a nationalist, and that tends to run on the right side of the distribution scale from the standpoint of policy. It's like if Stalin, if the United States has Medicare for all, does the United States become a socialist nation? Of course not. It's nonsense. He was a right-winger. Authoritarianism tends to be a tendency of the right. This idea of nationalism tends to be a tendency of the right, not the tendency of the left. Hitler, just because he calls himself socialist, he can call himself a bag of potatoes if he wanted to call himself a bag of potatoes. That in no way made him a socialist. It's like, for example, Macron, socialist, is over there attacking labor as we speak. Bernie Sanders calls himself a democratic socialist. People can call themselves whatever they want. The question is, what do they do? What are the policies they espouse? And what are they doing when they get into government? And Hitler, far to the right, on the scale of a nationalist, was not a lefty. This is not this thing for more openness in regards to the policies that people have. These guys were not lefties. They were decidedly, well, first, xenophobic. That's one part. But also from the standpoint of policy, nationalistic. Those things tend to trend on the right, not on the left. So but you don't even think of that up until the point where that's sprung on you. You're like, what? Is this what you guys have been talking about in right-wing media? This is nonsense. It's nonsense. I enjoyed that, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna end this. Take more calls. My powers are low on this, man. I've been taking calls all day. Authoritarians can be on the left too. Whoa, Jamal. Authoritarians can be on the left. That's true. But Hitler was a xenophobic racist who, yes, he may have provided, some services for the people in the country, but for the most part, exclusion of Jews, exclusion of these other races, concentration camps, this idea of white nationalists, those are tendencies of the right. Now, yeah, you can have somebody like Joe Stalin who, authoritarian, on the left. this left and right thing, man, it's just the communists and the fascists were at odds. Hitler was a fascist. In fact, you can even make this argument that Hitler developed a lot of the stuff or his techniques from Mussolini, which he did, actually. Mussolini was the one that Hitler used to some degree as a model from the standpoint of fascism. That's a decidedly right-wing thing. This idea of attacking labor and all this other stuff, labor and collusion between labor and politics and the political class. I'm just making this point that this is way beyond the point. Fascism is a right-wing thing. Hitler developed his techniques from interactions with Mussolini. Yes, he exceeded Mussolini at one point, Mussolini having this indignity of being rescued by Hitler at the point where Italy fell apart. Hitler putting Mussolini... it was a wild case, man. If you look at the old footage of Mussolini, you see him in the beginning where he's, like poking his chest out. This worker, they're just insane. Taking his theatrics from some television show. And you see him later in the war. And he's like a broken man. Hitler, in one of the conversations with Mussolini, said he's lost his nerve. He's lost his nerve. And at that point, Hitler started putting out forces nearby in case they would have to go in to get him. In case Italy fell apart. It's fascism. Both countries were fascist countries. And it wasn't just both countries. You're talking about Spain. You're talking about multiple countries all through that region of the world. Germany, for the most part, whether people realize it, had subsumed Europe. Now, hated communists. Hated communists with a passion. You can make a case that says, yes, they are authoritarian lefties. But if we're talking about the case, a very specific case of Hitler, he was decidedly to the right. So, I feel you, but I guess it's a moot point. FDR put Japanese internment camps. Hello. I know. Just don't watch this BS or that BS. Doesn't Jamal take up all your time anyway? Who are you talking about? Yeah, you were all over the place when you're baiting Trudy. Low batteries. I wasn't all over the place. My point was straightforward and specific. Either you have a country of laws or you don't. Either laws apply to everybody or they don't apply to everybody. If the cop decides he's only going to give people tickets who aren't blondes, then that cop has just created a system on its own and is completely unfair to the other people who are coming up and getting that ticket. Yes, in a specific instance of getting the ticket, you can say that this person deserved a ticket. By the same token, this guy just gave a pass to all of these other people who were in a row because he decided he liked them for whatever reason better. That essentially destroyed all notion of law. Yeah, my point is clear. My point is right. I'm going to end it here. Thomas. Mussolini was far more competent than people gave him credit for. Yeah, but if you lose a war, do you know what happened to Italy? If you lose a war, your competence issue goes out the window. You're not competent if you take your country into a war that completely obliterated your country. That's not competence. That's the opposite of competence. If they don't apply to everybody, then they don't apply to anybody. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Yeah. Because at that point, you don't have laws. You have something else. Think of the system, Trudy, that you're talking about. That's a funhouse reality. You're talking about a system where some people can be convicted of crimes and other people not. And I'm saying, if law doesn't apply across the board, then it's not law. It's something else. It's selective justice. It's the legal system being used for witch hunts. That is not a justice system. Justice has nothing to do with that. That is a political witch hunt. Yes. If the cop is letting blinds off, let's say blacks, or let's say whites. Let's say he's racist. And let's say that cop lets off whites while at the same token give blacks tickets. Is your argument really that it's okay for him to give African Americans tickets because the person was wrong in the moment, even though from a contextual standpoint, you know that he's letting off people who he's okay with from a standpoint of race? Come on, it's nonsense. Law only deals with the past. Yeah, law only deals with the past. Liberal cities have fascist police. Sometimes, yeah. Bro, I'm offering you some of that sweet TYT money. Well, it sounds like the $2 million is gone, so I have no idea where that's gone. They hired a bunch of reporters, and then within a year, fired those reporters. That is in of itself is amazing. Yeah, man, I don't know how much of that sweet TYT money is left. Jamal used the word authoritarianism, though. That's fair. That's fair. Does it have anything to do with holding corrupt politicians accountable? HTF. I don't know what HTF is. How the fuck does that have anything to do with holding corrupt politicians accountable? Oh, I see. I don't know which ones you're referring to. Chink snorted $2 million in coke. Chink did not snort $2 million in coke. Shit, just make sure the locks don't work for the 99% money. Crimes should be legal under Jamal's logic. No, all crimes should be penalized under my logic. It's called law. What you're talking about is something else. I have no idea what you're talking about. Either it's the law or either it's not. Either it applies to everybody or don't. You can't have it both ways. You can't make a straight-faced argument saying it's okay for some people to get off, but other people we want to put on. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Come on. That's utter nonsense. No, Trudy. No. I'm not talking about you. No, I'm using it as an example. I'm trying to make an extreme example to try to show the fallacy of your argument. It makes no sense. If you're talking about race, let's say gender. Let's say somebody is a feminist. Let's say the person who's a feminist lets women get off while at the same token give men a ticket. Is that fair? Is that really a legal system if one part of the legal system always gets off when the other part always stays on? I'm saying that's nonsense. At that point, that's not a legal system. It's not anything. If somebody is making a determination to use laws in a selective way, then at that point, laws become meaningless. My argument here is that you hold everybody accountable, not that you let people off. I'm saying that the argument that you're making here is that it's okay to let some people off while putting some people on. That's a nonsense argument. Law is an excuse to appease people while Pinky and the brain takes over. Is that what it is? But you use the argument to say Trump should let off. It doesn't work good. No, I use that argument to say something that's true. If you're going to say that Donald Trump is guilty of a particular crime, you should say that everybody who's doing it is guilty of that particular crime. None of the stuff of we don't like Trump, so it's okay for getting him hooked up on some kind of charge. But other people are okay, so we're not going to say anything about them. It is not law if it's selective. It is something else. That should be a flat fact. It is terrifying that you guys are okay with using law in this way where you're selective in one case but not in the other. I let this person off because maybe this person is a woman or this person is some other quality that I'm okay with, but everybody else I'm going to put on. That's nonsense. What about people who are corrupt? What about Wall Street? Well, these people are my ilk. These people are my type. Maybe these people gave me a lot of money in the campaign, so I am going to let these people off. But I am going to bring a case on some kind of fraud case on somebody who's part of the 99% that maybe had some kind of bank loan. Certainly, you understand the fallacy of your argument here. You're saying that it's okay in some cases to let people off while at the other cases prosecuting people. Either law is used across the board or it's not law. It's something else. I don't know why that's that's mystical. Jamal, I'm kind of hurt, bro. Jing asks who should be the next reporter we hire and fire, and I said you, but you don't seem to want that your job. I've been to Wall Street. There aren't any walls. There aren't any walls. Trudy, you're arguing with the establishment, not me. My point has nothing to do with letting anybody off. But Trudy, it does. It does. Whether you realize it or not, it does. Your legal system is not built on a single case. You understand that? Like your legal system is not built on the prosecution of one individual. It doesn't work that way. The whole point of the legal system is that everybody is equal under the law. Why do you think she's wearing blindfolds when she's holding the scales? Because if you're using justice unequally, then it's selective justice. The point of her having those blindfolds, holding on to the scales, is she's weighing the evidence and she's using the law to apply to everyone fairly across the board. What you're saying decapitates that process. You're saying that, yes, I didn't necessarily like that this person got off, but I'm perfectly okay with putting this other person on, knowing full well that if the same situation had came up with that last person, everybody would have shut up and nobody would have cared. That is justice used unequally. I'm saying that if justice is not used across the board, then it's not justice at all. That's what I'm saying. So, yeah. So are you arguing to let Trump off or what? I'm arguing that if you're going to go after Trump for something, then you need to be willing to go after the other person for the same thing. Now, are you saying that you should have a legal system in which some people are let off, but other people are put onto some charge just because you don't particularly like that person? That's your argument. That is literally the argument that you're making here. I'm saying that argument is nonsense from the standpoint of a legal system. A legal system has to be built on fairness. You can't have this thing where there's some people who you prosecute and other people who you don't. Come on. Certainly you can see the problem with that logic. Come on. Jeremy Chase, socialism now, hashtag. I'd argue both parties need to wake up, but Democrats needed it way more than the GOP. They didn't need to wake up. Donate to Wolfpack, bro. That's hilarious. Justice, fairness, moral rightness, schemes or systems of law in which every person receives his or her due from the system, including all rights, both natural and legal. Imagine a legal system where certain elements of the system itself, for whatever reason, whether you want to say because of wealth, whether you want to say because of social status, we've had stratifications in our legal system before where certain people commit crimes and they get off. The South was okay with killing African Americans and letting those people off. That's unequal justice. If an African American in the South killed somebody, they would have hung him. Now, you're saying that, hey, it's bad that that African American killed that person and that person should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But that person who's prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law has nothing to do with the person who's just let off just the last week, who actually did something just as heinous, if not worse. The legal system will prosecute one, but the legal system does not prosecute the other. I'm saying that's not a legal system at all. That's a kangaroo court. That's a difference in those things. Cops can kill civilians because other cops got off. No, that doesn't touch my argument at all. Cops shouldn't be able to kill civilians at all. My argument is they should be prosecuted across the board, that there shouldn't be carve-outs for certain people. In fact, you're making my argument for me. Cops, in this case, tend to get off. As if, and people realize there's an unequal system of justice. If I, Jamal Thomas, killed somebody, I would be prosecuted. If some cop killed me, he gets off. Now you're saying that, to some degree, that is okay for there to be an unequal justice system. I'm saying it's not okay for there to be an unequal justice system. I'm saying that the people should be prosecuted across the board. That's my argument. That's why I'm standing on that argument. That doesn't change at all. You're making my argument for me. Cops kill somebody and get off. I kill somebody and I'm convicted. That is an unfair system. I smoke a bowl and get caught walking down the street. I'm put in a prison or I'm put in jail. George W. Bush killed 1 million people. He gets off. That's an unequal justice system at work here. I'm saying the justice system should not be unequal. You can't call it a justice system if it's unequal in the way you go about prosecuting your affairs. That's my point. The problem is politicians are the legal system. Yeah, to some degree, that's a problem. Yeah, they're strawmanning you. Yeah, the argument doesn't work. The argument doesn't work, whether they realize it or not. Their argument doesn't fly. It is not a justice system. Why on earth is she standing there with a blindfold? She's standing there with a blindfold because justice needs to be unequal in a legal system. The legal system depends upon each of us believing that the system is treating us fairly. If we don't believe the system is treating us fairly, you have no reason to acquiesce to the legal system itself. If Bob is going to be treated differently than Tom, then why is Tom going to acquiesce to the legal system? Why? Fairness is a hallmark of any particular legal system if you're talking about a legal system. Otherwise, you're going to have elements of the society that look at this as being fundamentally unfair. If an African American in the Deep South gets the African American woman that shot the gun, and they put her in prison for shooting. She didn't kill anybody. She didn't hurt anybody. By the same token, you can have somebody in the same state that says, I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to blow a bullet in somebody, even though that person wasn't necessarily under threat. This is unequal justice. One person gets put into a prison cell, didn't kill anybody, and was trying to fight or defend herself off from a boyfriend that was trying to take her head off. And the other person did kill somebody and screamed that they were standing their ground. Is that fair? Is that a real legal justice system? If one person in the system gets off for committing something of a similar crime and the other person didn't even commit a crime and the person goes to prison? It's not a legal system. If it's a kangaroo court where it changes depending upon the person who's standing in front of the judge, whether race, color, creed, all of it, whatever. If any of those things influence the decision of the person or influence the decision of the court, then it's no longer a fair and just court. It is impossible to say that you're talking about whatever the person is or whatever the individual is, because the legal system is not built off of individuals. It's built off of an entire system. It's built into the name legal system. I mean, come on. Let's be honest. HRC gets off on murder because there's no way Bill can get her off. Oh, Balthazar. Balthazar. There are 3 tiers. No prison ever, amazing plea deals, and everyone else. People need to incorporate themselves or just stay out. No prison ever. Yeah, that's the corporate class. Amazing plea deals. That's also the corporate class, and there's everyone else. We're part of everyone else. Per your logic, per the logic you're using, are you then against hate crime prosecutions? Killing a black man because he is black receives a different penalty for killing a black man for different reasons. Meaning, me hating your guts gets more time than me just killing you just to kill you. I don't know. I don't know, Joshua, and let me explain why. Let's not pretend that the history of African Americans in this country hasn't been complex. Let's not pretend. Let's not pretend that there's been some point where there's been a gap in history where everybody says, let's have kumbaya, let's everybody come together and everything's fair and good and let's go about our way. That has never taken place. I understand the reason for the persecution, meaning the reason for the law. They're trying to disincentivize people killing somebody because they hate that person. I don't know how effective those laws are, if I'm being honest. I don't know, Joshua. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate now. The reason why I say I don't know is because we've had a complex history in this country, and I'm using complex yada yada, a lot of shit under that complex history. And I don't like it when people pretend as if that history is over, or that history has never taken place, or that history doesn't necessarily have ties or tethers that come into the way we go about our affairs today. The poverty and everything else that's associated in our country has its roots in the way that we started our ordeal in this country. Does that change my argument? No, it doesn't change my argument. No, it doesn't change my argument. Because ultimately you're in this prosecution. I think your point is, if you're saying that the prosecution of a person needs to be equal under the law, well, at that point, that is just the law. If you're saying I'm adding a penalty because you're killing somebody who's an African American, that's still the law. That's still a penalty under the law. That is not a situation where people are making individual decisions to go after one person or the next. That is still the law. At the point where the person makes it a law saying that hate crimes are part of the legal system, the hate parts are part of the legal system, that is still being used to some degree on it's not being used unfairly or unjustly. It's being used under the legal structure itself. I hope that makes sense. I'm just making a very basic point. Your legal system, if it is to be fair, has to be across the board. That's all. And adding, 10 years, saying we're going to add 10 years to somebody if they're doing it for a hate crime. Look, I don't know how effective that is. So I'm not taking a position on that because I don't necessarily know how effective that is one way or the other. I don't necessarily think people say, man, I was going to kill that Negro, but God damn it, they've said 20 years or added to it, so I don't want to do it. I don't know how effective that is. So there's that. But I don't know how equal under the law is impeached. I just don't. And I got to be honest, I'm somewhat terrified of the opposition to that idea that people should be equal under the law. Balthazar, this isn't Clue. You can't simply guess. Trump in Russia with the hacking. You have to go with where the evidence leads you. The law also has to apply equally. It must be enforced equally. Yeah, otherwise it's not the law. Otherwise it's not the law. Agreed. Agreed. Per your logic, you're using, are you, oh, yeah, I read that one. Yeah, it's against the law. It's the law at that point. Yeah, I gotta be honest, guys. You guys are terrifying me with this disposition. You're terrifying me with this. Because I don't know what else there is. Like I agree with you, Trudy, from the standpoint of crimes should be prosecuted. Yes, hands down. Corruption should be prosecuted. Hands down. We are kumbaya, walking in the sun, shirts off, in the light of day, with our hands up, smoking a doobie. Yes, agreed. My issue comes in with the standpoint of how is the justice system used? And if the justice system is used as a political weapon, then it's no longer a justice system. At that point, it's a hatchet. Well, what are hatchets used for from a political context? And if it's only used to attack somebody that you don't particularly like, it's no longer a justice system. It's something else. I would more so agree with you if you said it was widespread corruption and let's go after widespread corruption. Hands off, no issue. No issue. But not the way we were doing it. This is not justice. This is something else. This is something else. Then don't just focus on Trump. Go after Facebook. The whole thing has been a farce since a year before the election. Weaponized laws. Yeah. Dark roasty. Weaponized laws. I don't like weaponized laws. Bob gets off because he's white. Bob gets off because he's a broker who's given a bunch of money to the Democratic Party. Bob gets off because he's part of a political class that they don't necessarily look under the covers associated with Bob. Tom gets longer in prison because Tom is of a particular race or because he was of a particular class. I don't like that stuff. I hate that stuff. GOP play checkers. Democrats can take peace, lose the game. That's funny. I love that. Cenk Uygur. Jamal, I challenge you to a fisticuffs for the horror of TYT. For the honor of TYT. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Jamal, the confusion is you're saying Trump should get a pass. Oh, I see. And maybe I'm saying two things. Maybe I'm saying two things. It's not... Look, it's not that I believe that you should whitewash crimes. That's not it. The issue that I think lefties have on this, when people are going after Trump saying crimes, is you ignore other crimes. Which means that you're not in this for the pursuit of justice. You're in this for the pursuit of a political witch hunt, which I want no part of. That's what I'm getting at. Was it okay for them to go after Bill Clinton for a blowjob? Fuck no. And Bill Clinton left like a 70% approval rating because people knew that they were going after him with a political witch hunt. I'm making the same point here. If this is purely just a political witch hunt, then no, I'm not behind it. Again, this argument relates to the intersection of law and politics. It's not about letting Trump off. Yeah, I agree. Exactly. It's nonsense to say that you only look at who's in front of you. No. If you're Nancy Pelosi, or if you're a political actor, are you honestly telling me that you believe that these guys are searching for justice? No, they're not. They're not. And when the same situation evolves, and it was Hillary Clinton, they would shut up and they would go about their affairs. It is a political witch hunt. If it is a political witch hunt, then they're using the justice system for something that it wasn't designed to be used for. Lady Justice, who's sitting there with her eyes closed, all of a sudden pulls up the veil in order to see who she's prosecuting. I'm saying that's not justice. It's something else. It's not about letting Trump off. It's about recognizing that the justice system shouldn't be used for political witch hunts. Cryptic Warrior, what about them hundreds of thousands of migrants thrown out of Algeria and Algeria? They have to walk across the desert some 90 odd miles, half don't even make it. You know, speaking of that, even the thing with Syria, you have some people who are refugees who are streaming now who have tents, but you're in summer weather in Syria, and the temperatures are going to go to insane lengths. Yeah, man, we have horrible courts in session over trumped up charges. Yeah, I don't discount whataboutism, but letting Trump off the hook for any of his money laundering crimes, etc., is exactly that. Well, I'm going to love the point when the same thing comes up for the next Democratic president and nobody says shit about it and they let the person off. So, yeah, it's like, come on, be honest or be fair. Yes, but again, history, Hillary Clinton wasn't politics. During that, Trump wasn't. Apply context. Context always matters. I'm going to pull my hair out, Jamal. In this. Fair enough, Michael. Fair enough. All right, guys. I'm going to end this one. We've gone, god damn it, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Still, it was a great conversation. I love it. Judicial precedent set by hastily comes bite you. Judicial precedent set up hastily comes back to bite you. Yes, unless your name is Hillary Clinton, in which case you can just turn around and point to Donald Trump and say, yeah, go get him with the law, but pay no attention to me. Yeah. Unequal justice is not justice. It's something else. That's my only point. All right, I'm going to end this here. Guys, thank you very much for coming to the show. Trudy, love debating with you. Absolutely love it. I hope you don't think bad of me for the debate, but I love debating you on this stuff. I love debating the left on this stuff. I think we figure out who we are when we have these conversations. Now, that being said, thank all of you for showing up. There were a few other ones that I wanted to get to, but for whatever reason, when I do live shows, I can never get to the ones in totality. Or I end up spending more time than I want to on a show. But that's it. It's 2 hours well spent. And I want to thank all of you for joining me on the show. We had a decent crowd today. So, Baltazar, go for 4 hours. Baltazar, the first show I did early today, I think was 2 hours and like 40 minutes or so. And then I did another one that was maybe like 30, 40 minutes. And now this one, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's being on camera for a very, very, very long time, and being on camera live for a very, very, very long time. And even though it doesn't seem like it, it's somewhat of a draining exercise because you're constantly aware that you're on camera. This thing in the back of your head tells you you're live, don't fuck up. And so you have this, it's like you're you, but you're you with a modifier. That makes sense. It's so bizarre. It's cognizant that there are eyes on you. Now, when I do a video, I know that there are going to be people to watch the video, but it's a little bit different when you're doing it. You can always kill the video if you don't like it. You can, oh gosh, that was a horrible video. Let me get rid of it. When you're live, you don't have that option. You're stuck with what you got. And so it's always a little bit more tense. But thank you guys very much. I don't know if I'm going to be back tonight for another video, but I think there is 1 or 2 items that I probably want to hit and push up. So I appreciate you guys for coming on to the show. And for all of you that support the channel, Super Chat, Patreon, sending me links, sending me emails, liking, Facebooking, Twittering, everything in between. Thank you. I honestly can't have a show without you. When my wife and I go traveling, the show is going with me, and I'm going to have the opportunity to go to all these various war sites. I'm a history buff, and my history buff to some degree comes through this context of war. And yeah, to some degree, I guess that affects the way I look at the world. But we're going to be going to all of these various sites. And so I'm going to get the opportunity to actually go to the sites themselves and do videos of the sites themselves. You have no idea how much I'm looking forward to that. I am on cloud fucking 9 with the opportunity to do that. And so if nobody watched, I wouldn't be able to do it. So thank you very much, guys. I don't know if I'm going to see you again tonight, but knowing me, if I can't sleep, I might. Did you get that shirt in California? Fred Edward, no, I didn't get that shirt in California. I got that shirt from Old Navy. I had that shirt from Old Navy. It's so easy to go down a rabbit hole when debating. Xander, GC, yes it is. But it's fun, it's fun. Like, I like non-mean-spirited debates. Like, let me say it this way. I like debates when I understand what the person is getting at. Like, when I understand the person's point of view, meaning I understand what Trudy is getting at. I understand her point of view. And I don't have any bad feeling of her. I know to some degree her and I think about this in very similar terms. And so I don't that conversation is easier because at the very least we're working with a similar frame of reference, as opposed to somebody who's just a political hack who's taking a disposition because they have a political disposition, like Keith Olbermann said with when what's her name, Donna Brazile, came out saying that they cheated Bernie Sanders. He said her career is over. Think about that. They just said that one of the political person or candidate was being cheated by the party. And the only thing Olbermann can say, not, oh my God, I'm shocked by this, not, oh my God, I can't believe they did it, but her career is done. Her career is done. Those people are aggravating. I like real people. So, thank you, Trudy. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to end this. Danny sounded angry, though. Danny could sound angry, but I think we were... Look, people argue in different ways. I didn't take anything Danny said was bad. I thought him and I had a decent back and forth. Well, if he's not coming back, he may as well stay. That's funny. Olbermann is kind of an ass, though. Olbermann, goddamn it, fucking Olbermann, man. That hurt me to my heart when Olbermann came out and said that all the stuff with Bush, he might have overstepped his bounds. To understand how insane it is for Olbermann to say it, you have to look back at the footage of Olbermann for years, night after night after night, trashing George Bush. He trashed George Bush so much that he said, I am not going to call this a special comment anymore, because if you're doing it every night, then it can't all that be special. So it's just the comment. Like, I'm trying to get across this idea on how much he went after George Bush. And then X number of years later, in order to create a pivot to attack Trump, he comes out and saying, yeah, maybe I misjudged Bush. Killed 1 million people. Trump hasn't killed 1 million people. Maybe I misjudged Bush. It's amazing. Olbermann was a really good way back. Yes, he was, man. That man was a fucking lion, man. He really was. Not anymore. Not anymore. I never got to finish my point from the... Oh, finish your point, Balthazar. Go ahead, finish your point. I never got to finish my point from the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez video. All right, Balthazar, finish your point, and that's going to be the last thing. Do your thing, Balthazar. Come on, do your thing. We got 80 people here for you. The spotlight is on you. It's your dance. Dance, young man, dance. Dance like the world is watching. Dance like nobody is watching, Balthazar. Come on. Thank you, I am the new Olbermann. Nicholas Locke is like, finish. Well, Nicholas, I'm trying to give Balthazar his spotlight. Balthazar, do your thing. Balthazar, do your thing. Do your thing. I want to hear it. Olbermann became another hyperbolic pantsweater. Yeah. Do I call in? No, you don't have to call in. I thought you said you were trying to make your point. Oh, you want to call in? If you want to call in, call in. I want you to make your point. Go ahead, call in, Balthazar. Nicholas Locke, you can never end, JT. I know, I'm trying to end it. I'm letting Balthazar get his point, because Balthazar was on that video for a long time and the video cut off. Yeah, they basically, yeah, an open court about cheating Sanders. Balthazar?
Yes.
What's going on, man? What's going on?
Yeah, so, no, my point back from then, when I started by basically saying, yes, she's going to be under higher scrutiny,
yeah,
was also a two-parted thing, is that when you start out and say, I have principled, solid, concrete positions, and then you change them, that's effectively betraying one of the core parts of what you made your campaign is. So regardless of whether she wavers or not, she will be under higher scrutiny because she's, A, one of the first sort of major progressive and DSA victories, and B, she'll be under higher scrutiny because as being one of those first progressive people who claim to have unwavering principles, when you draw the line, you're going to be judged based on that kind of concrete nature to that.
I love the word
that
unwavering.
Was my only point of that.
Yeah, I love that unwavering principles. In what is it? Incorruptible. That's one of those other ones I love. Incorruptible.
Right.
I love those words.
So it's like, even if you draw like a wavy line or like a blurred line, that's one thing. But when you say I'm concrete on my principles and then you waver on that, you're going to be judged more harshly than other ones.
Now,
so,
let me
and if you're...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. And I'm interrupting. Yeah. I'm bad at interrupting. I'm bad at predicting when somebody is stopping. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say also there's sort of a hierarchy of like what are you going to waver on?
Yeah.
If you're wavering on Medicare for all, that's really fucking bad.
That's a red line to me.
If you're wavering on humans' rights atrocities, that's also really bad.
Yeah.
Relative to, I don't know, wavering on whether you want the U.S. to have, ranked choice voting is something that certainly is less important than Medicare for all, and
Agreed.
there's a hierarchy for everyone. So,
No, I agree with you.
Effectively, by trying to run through a hall of knives and run in the most direct path possible, you're going to get cuts. There are going to be scars on your record. And
Yeah.
the question is, how deep are those scars? How painful are those scars? Will you recover? Will you develop a scar and learn from it? Or will you simply get to a point where you're no longer able to run?
Yeah.
You have so many gashes and major spots on you that you're no longer able to continue. And it is a question of what you do from there and which risks you're willing to take those cuts on. And
No.
those cuts will cut into your character, and they'll cut deeper based on what those are.
No, I agree with you, man. I look at this stuff. I'm conflicted about a lot of these stories sometimes. So I agree with you when you look at this stuff to a certain degree of importance. Like how heavy is the wobble? I guess my big issue with this wasn't a standard I created. You know what I mean? Like, this was a standard that she created. I think a lot of lefties looked at what she said and they thought, God, she's strong on this. I love this. And somebody asked her a question on it, and she answers. And she says occupation. And the moment the woman barely, critically, asked her to expound upon it, she fell apart. Now, this is not me throwing her out the way, but I agree with you. It's like, that needs to be crystallized. Like, that can't be.
And I think one of the biggest things too about that particular position is it's something that differentiated her from the Democrats. It was the vote for me. I'm not like the other people.
Yeah. She even said Democrats need to stand up on this issue. She even said that in the tweet. Democrats need to stand up on this issue.
And if you're going to say, if you're trying to inspire hope in the Democratic brand, which is a tarnished brand, you're not going to be able to walk in and simply say, I'm not like the other people. We need to revamp this brand. We need to rethink how we're approaching Israel, Palestine, and the entire Middle East situation. And then suddenly you're just like the rest of them, because that's just going to piss more people off who have already thought of the Democrats as a toxic brand. Honestly, I think at the rate at which they will change, they will not change fast enough to avoid the 38 state and local legislatures that the GOP needs to make constitutional amendments. I just don't see it changing fast.
God, that's terrifying.
To contradict that, and therefore
that's terrifying. I don't know if people know what you're talking about, but that's terrifying.
Create a third party seems easier than trying to change the Democrats fast enough to avoid that and or climate change to the point it's not even a debate. We still fight these battles like they're still debates, but they aren't. We figured out the solution to homelessness. We figured out the solution, or at least a prevention for climate change. We shouldn't be arguing how are we going to provide energy and think an all of the above approach in Obama's language is okay.
Yeah.
That's no longer okay. It hasn't been okay for a while. And when we're fighting the battles that have already had solutions, that we already know are solutions, and we're acting like it's still a reasonable debate, that's disingenuous.
It's like there's a bomb on the bus, but we don't really want to do anything about the bomb that's on the bus. It's like, hey, if we just drive
like
to the next block.
It's like having a bomb on the bus and thinking that Keanu Reeves is the right person to make sure that the bus is going at that speed. He is probably not the right person to be trusting with your actual...
Or
it happened once.
Somebody just saying, hey, why don't we just try to defuse the bomb? Like, nobody asked us to try to defuse the bomb. Everybody just said we need to drive faster.
Right. Although if they hit 88 miles an hour, the flux capacitor might end up sending them into a different movie.
They go back in time.
So,
no, man, I agree with you. Look, I'm unclear on stuff like this because I never necessarily fully, I'm like, oh God, should I give more leeway or should I be more of a hard ass? And I have to
I think we're fine in that. Like, you're judging her on her own standards that she sets herself.
Yeah.
And in part, if she had not set such standards, and there isn't such a crunch for progressive victories and a need for this kind of conversation in an honest manner, then it wouldn't be so pissing off when there's wavering.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be progressive and you're going to say, I'm different from these people because I have bold, concrete, standardized principles, you can't waver on those because that's a problem.
Now, let me ask you this. Why do you think she wavered? That's the other, there are 2 points to this. Why do you think she wavered? And with this thing of wavering, clearly, she had a very clear perspective prior. And she said when she was an activist, she had a very clear perspective when she was an activist. Now she's a candidate. So what is the reason that you think for her to kind of wobble on it? Because she didn't repudiate her position, by the way. She just wobbled when she was, when the light of day was bared upon her. She just she just fell apart. But she didn't necessarily repudiate her previous position. She just got shaky on this. Why do you think she got shaky on this very specific position?
I mean, if I want to go with the cynical point of view, it may be that in conversations with the Democratic Party being the presumptive nominee, but then again, they still want to downplay her victory. So that seems less likely just because of how the corporate establishment has talked about her victory.
Yeah.
It seems as though they're not really even supporting her bid to be the representative that she was elected to be.
They don't want her in that Congress. Thank God they don't want her in that Congress. There's no way. They want, no, don't get me wrong. They would rub themselves into some Ocasio. They'd be like, oh, this is the face of the party. And use that as they operate in the way that they operate. It's kind of like Joe Crowley getting Ro Khanna to give him a thing saying, hey, look, I'm so progressive. I was able to get Ro Khanna to give me an endorsement. Well, he's using Ro Khanna in this case in order to kind of solidify the left in his particular constituency. So I suspect that in the same way they were using Sanders for that, and in the same way they were using, Ro Khanna for that, she may be used for that also. Am I wrong on this?
Yeah. I mean, I also think that it may be something in just a not to ruffle too many feathers element of, I will have to work with these people in the future.
That's what I think it is.
If I start already saying, all of you are absolute cowards for not denouncing Israel in New York, that doesn't exactly work for any future things. But I also think that she has no reason to not go there until the moment that she actually is in this chamber working with them. Because at that point, even then, you can still go on that hard, like, yeah, you guys really have to rethink this whole situation because we fucked up royally. Like, you can call them out for that.
I looked at this, and I got to be honest, I had 2 reactions. My feeling was, like, God, man, she's in a tough spot. She's dealing with people who are attacking her on both sides of this. But my other feeling was, fuck that. You are saying something that is a terrorist state. And that terrorist state is injuring and killing and putting people in prison, putting kids in prison. And they're shooting peaceful protesters. Thousands. Now, I look at that and I say that's a massacre. And I look at that and say that's an occupation because objectively that's an occupation. That's not me saying it. That's the international community saying it. So, I consider her, she says, I'm a socialist. That's great. And part of the reason that people were enamored by her was because look at this attractive 28-year-old who calls herself a socialist who beat Joe Crowley. Right off the bat, this is some degree of change that people realize that they're getting. And part of that change could have easily been a strong case for, yes, it's an occupation. And you give your reasons in a 2-minute answer or a 1-minute answer. But have the answer. It looks horrendous. It looks... if Ocasio is never going to see this video, but it looks horrendous that somebody asks you a question like that and you fold under the light of day. Have your answer.
Right.
And here's the thing. Even if people may disagree with your answer, you are already considered a socialist. You are already considered to some degree on the outs. You are able to get that in just from the argument. Like, there's some Trump supporters that watch the show. If those Trump supporters never watched the show, there would be certain ideas that would never be pushed to them. They may disagree with the ideas, but at the very least, the person who's giving them the ideas to some degree, they give some credibility to where they may hear them. If there is 5% of Trump supporters that listen to me and say, okay, maybe he's right about this, then that's 5% that I got that would have never gotten in normal circumstances. Ocasio, making that argument, has been able to shoehorn her way into the consciousness of the public, the American public. Well, seeing as you shoehorn your way in, hey, one of the things that you may want to drag into you is a very decent, succinct answer about, yes, it's an occupation and why. That's all. That's all I'm asking. That's all. That's my only bitching. That's my only complaining. I'm not being hysterical about it. I'm just saying that, look, she literally stopped in the middle of it. Yeah. Like, no, don't do that. That looks bad. Like,
right.
That looks so bad. God, that looks bad.
It's not like the corporate media would give her any passes anyway, even if she decided to go with the Israeli is basically running an apartheid state right now. Yeah. This is not okay. If you gave children, like 2 children, and one kept on beating the other and stealing their toys and then acting like he was the victim, you would not reward them with more toys. That's not how it works.
I think you won nuclear weapons.
Right. Like, this is bonkers. This is one kid basically beating the other one with an actual hammer, while the other one is like trying to pick up sticks.
I'm not even asking her to go that far. That's not like I am just even on the word occupation. Just that word by itself. Like, that's the word that she said, well, you said occupation there. I did. Yeah. I said occupation. So yeah, man. By the way, Baltazar, I wanted to give you a t-shirt. And I don't know where your stuff is, so I can see you a t-shirt, because you have...
I shot you an email, like, I want to say 2 weeks ago, but I can certainly send you another one.
Yeah. Please send me another one.
Yep, will do.
Because I definitely... Dude, I appreciate you, man. You've been on this channel for God knows how long, and you've always these quirky things to say and everything else, and you've supported me continuously. So I just wanted to thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank you, dude. Having at least an outlet to explore different and interesting positions, concepts, views, something that is not the norm, because even amongst progressive circles, we do get very concentrated on very baseline ideas, baseline viewpoints, and not even possibly investigating other sides to arguments, because I may not have considered certain extra, even in your case, extraterrestrial things as well. But it's important to actually look beyond what one bubble is, even if one can't agree with it. And that's a really useful thing that you provide.
You're going to pull me in, man. You're going to pull me in. I'm trying not to. No, I appreciate that. But I honestly do. You have no idea how much I appreciate that. Especially the UFO thing. Because when I first did my channel on that, I was like, oh man, how much of this do I show? Like, how much of me do I give in the channel in regards to the stuff that I like and the stuff that I agree with? And I ended up on this thing of, there's no position where you're not going to be attacked. There is no position. There is no absolute position. You're watching to see where there are no edges. And so, be you. If you're going to be attacked, attack for who you are. Let them come at you. Wear it like armor. And so I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do the UFO, especially when it came out on CNN and MSNBC, because at that point it's the mainstream. Like, look, this is in the mainstream. Let's have this conversation. And so I know there are a lot of people like, this is bogus, this is nonsense, but at the very least, they give it a hear and they give it a listen and be like, okay, maybe. If I can get to the maybe, I've gained some level of success. So I appreciate it, man. I really do.
I mean, I personally am a cynic, but at the same time, I'm willing to investigate what that kind of possibility would entail, and looking at the possible outcomes from going forward with that concept.
It's fucking terrifying.
And that, at least, is further than I was 6 months ago. So
it is terrifying.
Bravo.
It's terrifying. It's politics has made me cynical, and I used to be this wild-eyed hippie who, the guy who's standing on the building holding a sign saying "Welcome, Space Brother" with no shirt on, like, yes, welcome to Earth. And now I'm like, oh man, maybe they shouldn't tell. that's like the transformation that has taken place. Or at the very least, just whisper in my ear about it. Tell me, because it's I look at our world and I'm like, God damn it, man! Like, we've had and I'll let you go on this one, but we've had a war, and people flood Syria and flood into Europe, and Europe flips out Like Europe utterly freaks out. Oh my God, we can't take these refugees, And it's indicative of, to some degree, some kind of system of othering of us and them, missing the point that all of us are relatively the same. This idea of culture, creed, society, all those things is somewhat false. Ultimately, the reality of it is we're human beings who are on a planet. There are resources on the planet distributed all throughout the planet, and we've decided that we want to hoard resources against others, which creates a certain amount of conflict between the multiple continents and everybody else, and people kind of accrue around a certain culture and society and everything else, and they think that culture and society is real. Look, I understand, how the beginnings of it and everything else, but it's somewhat aggravating to look up into the sky, and we're looking up into the sky from the standpoint of capitalists, like, capitalism going to the stars. So you're talking about companies that are controlling like space and all this other stuff. What happens when Elon Musk puts a little fort on the moon? Does Elon Musk decide to own part of the moon? Like, is that what we really want going into the stars and going into space? We have all of these people who don't have food on the table, who don't have literally a pot to piss in and literally a window to pitch it out of. And that is a large part of the population. And I'm looking at this like, how do we regard any action that's coming from our shores, meaning from the planet? How do we regard things that are coming in our planet and the hostilities that we're using our resources for? This terrifies me. This utterly terrifies me.
What happens if we don't have the galactic currency? The galactic currency functions on something we don't fully understand.
You're assuming there's currency.
We could be the poor planet.
No, you're missing my point. You're assuming there's currency. How do you, like, money may be an artifact of Earth. That might not necessarily be something that's out in the stars. In fact, you may have money being somewhat of a early part of a civilization of the dark ages of other civilizations. So the only time they have money is when they're developing their systems, in which case they get into a grown up and they start to grow and they become a grown up planet. We have no idea. Like this, it's so foreign. We don't even know if what we consider to be reality is reality on a large scale. Like, for all we know, we consider this slice of reality as being reality. For all we know, there is a wash of what considered to be reality, and we're just on the crust of it. Like, it's an open book. My concern in this is not so much what's going out in the stars. My concern so much is what we're doing here and how we respond to this stuff when we can't even respond to stuff that's taking place on the planet and feed our own goddamn people. That's all. It's terrifying me. Getting into politics has scared the shit out of me on the UFO issue. It's so weird. I've regressed on this issue.
And vice versa, we could also be the most intelligent species in our local supercluster.
That's even more terrifying.
Even worse.
That's even more. That's even more terrifying. Oh God, that's even scarier. All right, my man. Thank you very much.
But I won't keep you on for another 2 hours on Star Talk.
No. I'm about to end it here. No, man. I do appreciate it, man.
Okay.
You have a good night.
Have a good night, Jermo.
All right, let's see. Balthazar is chronically right. Peter, I'm trying to be fine. Peter version 1, two-state solution. Let's talk about that for a moment. Peter version 1, our country had a history of fucking over refugees. Look at the Jewish population in World War II. Or World War I. I mean, the Balfour document came in World War I. Look, I'm not against a two-state solution. Meaning, I'm for the determination of the Palestinians. That's what I'm for. If the Palestinian people are okay with a two-state solution, fair enough. But there's somewhat of a dilemma. How are you getting a two-state solution? All of the land that has been taken, all of the resources have, for the most part, been spoiled. I think like 80% of the water is undrinkable or something, or 90%. You've had a United States that has assiduously pretended as if there was some kind of deal going on, while at the same token, extraordinarily helping one side, even though you're supposed to be a fair barter in this particular deal. The other side, knowing that the United States was going to protect them, even though they were supposed to be fair barters, continued just to steal more and more land because they understood that the United States was going to block and protect them anytime something else came up. Now, how do you have a two-state solution in that scenario? Ultimately, one side is consistently taking more and more and more and more and more land. How do you have a two-state solution when there's not enough room for another state? Now, the problem with this from the standpoint of the Israelis is that you are destroying Israel if you have a one-state solution. By the same token, you destroy Palestine by having the creation, to some degree, of Israel taking more and more land. Will Israel give up the land in order to have a two-state solution? Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it at all. Now, if you had another president who was in that office who said, I'm cutting off funding to Israel until Israel actually negotiates and agrees to a real settlement. Now, granted, this to some degree depends on the governments in Hamas and the PLO, Palestinian Authority. Not PLO, Palestinian Authority. I'm going back too far back in time. But my point to this is, you can never have a real solution when the United States is playing favorites with one of the sides. You just can't. How can you have a real solution? Is the election of Hillary Clinton fair in the primaries when the Democratic Party has essentially handed over the reins to Hillary Clinton? How do you have a two-state solution when all of the land or the most of the land have been taken? How? I think that's the issue that people have on this idea of a two-state solution. I don't care what the solution is from the standpoint of whether it's two-state or one-state. I want the Palestinian people to be happy with the solution, and I want the shit to last and to stick. Before the Balfour document, before Israelis started flooding into that area, Jews and Muslims live handedly, side by side, perfectly fine. Live there perfectly fine. This is not a religious issue. This is an issue of land. People actually act like this is some esoteric issue. Like they're like, they've been fighting for generations, for eons. They've been fighting in this match between Jews and Muslims. Before Earth itself had formed, there was a cosmic fight between Jews and Muslims. No, this is an issue of land that goes back maybe, 50 years or so. I'm sick of this issue, man. I'm sick of these conflicts that seems to never last or never end. They just go on in perpetuity. And to some degree, the United States has not been a positive force in some of these things. God damn it, Britain, man. Fucking Britain. I'm not your bro troll. I love that. Trina be fine. Don't hurt him, Trina. Don't hurt him. Don't hurt him. All right, I'm going to end this. I keep saying that. You see, keep going. Look, guys, I want to thank you for all of the assistance that you guys gave to the channel. I love Trina Be Fine. Balthazar is chronically right. Balthazar is chronically right. Peter version 1. If the Palestinians are for the two-state solution, if Israelis are willing to essentially pull back to some level of borders where they actually have the territory, then yes, I agree. Otherwise, I am for a one-state solution. One man, one vote. Israel doesn't like that because to them that is destruction of the Israeli state. To some degree, they made that choice when they started stealing all that land. So I will end this here. No. No, leave. Yeah, my audience is fighting. Oh, God, don't fight. Don't fight. What about God's chosen people? That's like saying royalty. Do you believe that the Queen was appointed by God? Balfour document. Want to look it up? Spell it. It's B-A-L-F-L-O-U-R. The Balfour document was a document that was Britain was playing fast and loose. In World War I, Britain was trying to rally as much help as Britain could find. And at one point, they had this big meeting where you have all these governments and everything coming together after the war. But Britain was playing fast and loose, and Britain was promising things to Arabs and promising things to Jews. Well, in one case, they delivered. In another case, not so much. Mind you, the delivery didn't come until after the Second World War. But in one case, they delivered. In the other, they did not. They promised an Arab state. And they got, I can't think of his name, Falicid, I can't pronounce his name. But they got him to sign over almost like rights to something, while at the same token essentially putting a knife in him after the fact. He thought he was going to get an Arab republic or an Arab state. Not so much. Not so much. But yes, Balfour, B-A-L, I think F-L-O-U-R, something to that effect. I mean, it's fascinating. Britain was playing fast and loose. Britain was in a war. Britain was trying to win the war. Britain was promising whatever Britain had to promise to win that war. He was trying to rally the Arabs essentially to attack the Ottoman Empire. It worked. They won the war. We're living with the consequences of that win. So, all right. I'll leave it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, subscribe, and you can always support through Patreon. And Moni G, thank you very much. All right, guys. Y'all have a good one. Thanks, everyone.